Captive Heart, a dark romance novel. Prologue, The Witness. The rain came down in sheets, turning the cobblestones of the warehouse district into mirrors that reflected the sickly yellow glow of the streetlights. Isla Brennan clutched her portfolio bag tighter against her chest as she hurried through the labyrinth of abandoned buildings and shipping containers. She shouldn't have taken this shortcut. She knew better. But the client meeting had run late, and the last bus left in 20 minutes. Her sneakers splashed through puddles, the sound too loud in the oppressive silence. The only other noise was the distant rumble of thunder and the rhythmic patter of rain against metal roofs. Isla's auburn hair clung to her face in wet tendrils, and she could feel the cold seeping through her jacket. Almost there, she told herself. Just 2 more blocks to the main road. Then she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the storm, a voice, sharp and commanding, cutting through the rain. Isla froze mid-step, her heart suddenly hammering against her ribs. The voice came from somewhere to her left, from one of the warehouses with a half-open loading dock door. Light spilled out from inside, warm and incongruous in this desolate place. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but curiosity, that damnable, foolish curiosity, made her take 1 step closer, then another. Through a gap in the rusted metal siding, Isla could see inside. 3 men stood in a pool of light cast by a single overhead bulb. 2 of them were broad-shouldered, dressed in dark suits that looked expensive even from this distance. The 3rd man was on his knees, his hands bound behind his back, his face bloodied and swollen. But it was the 4th man who captured Isla's attention completely. He stood apart from the others, tall and commanding, dressed in a black coat that hung open to reveal a tailored shirt and vest beneath. His hair was dark as midnight, slicked back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and austere beauty. But it was his eyes that made Isla's breath catch. Even from this distance, even in the dim light, she could see they were the color of smoke, cold and merciless. He was the most beautiful and terrifying thing she had ever seen. The man spoke, his voice low and measured, each word precise. Isla couldn't make out what he said, but the tone was unmistakable, judgment being passed, sentence being delivered. The kneeling man began to plead, his voice rising in panic. The dark-haired man, Isla somehow knew he was the one in charge, raised his hand. One of the suited men stepped forward and placed a gun in his palm with the reverence one might show a sacred object. No, oh God, no. Isla should have run then, should have turned and fled without looking back. But her body had locked in place, frozen by horror and disbelief. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen in the real world. Not in her world. The dark-haired man raised the gun with casual grace. The kneeling man's pleas reached a crescendo. A single shot rang out, impossibly loud, echoing off the warehouse walls and drowning out even the thunder. The kneeling man crumpled, his body hitting the concrete with a wet thud. Isla's portfolio bag slipped from her numb fingers and hit the ground with a slap that sounded like another gunshot in the sudden silence. 4 pairs of eyes snapped toward the gap in the wall. Toward her. Run. This time, her body obeyed. Isla spun on her heel and ran, her sneakers slipping on the wet pavement. Behind her, she heard shouts, the sound of footsteps pounding against concrete. The rain hammered down harder, blinding her, turning the world into a watercolor blur. She didn't know where she was going, just away. Away from what she'd seen, away from the cold-eyed man and his terrible, casual violence. Isla rounded a corner between 2 shipping containers, her lungs burning, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She could hear them behind her, closer now. They were going to catch her. They were going to kill her just like they'd killed that man. She burst out onto a wider avenue between warehouses, searching desperately for an escape route, anywhere to hide. Strong hands seized her from behind. Isla screamed, thrashing wildly, but the grip was iron, She was spun around and slammed back against a shipping container hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. A hand clamped over her mouth, silencing her cries. "Got her, boss." The voice was close to her ear, rough and American. Isla's vision swam with tears of terror as she stared up at one of the suited men from the warehouse. Up close, she could see the cold professionalism in his eyes, the way he held her with practiced ease. He'd done this before. Footsteps approached, slower now, deliberate. Through the rain, a figure emerged from the shadows between the containers. The dark-haired man. He walked with the unhurried confidence of someone who had never known fear, never known doubt. The rain didn't seem to touch him. Or perhaps it did, but he simply didn't care. His coat billowed slightly in the wind, and in the strobing flash of lightning, Isla saw his face clearly for the first time. Beautiful, terrible, utterly without mercy. He stopped 3 feet away, those smoke-gray eyes fixing on her with an intensity that made her want to shrink into the metal at her back. For a long moment, he simply looked at her, his gaze traveling from her terrified amber eyes to her rain-soaked hair, down to where she was still struggling weakly against his subordinate's grip. "Let her breathe, Marco." His voice was low, touched with an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe. "She can't answer questions if she's suffocating." The hand over her mouth loosened slightly. Isla gasped in a breath, then another, her whole body trembling. "Please," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't see anything. I swear I didn't see." "Don't lie." The words were soft, but carried the weight of absolute authority. He took a step closer, and Isla could smell expensive cologne mixed with gunpowder and rain. "I despise liars." Up close, she could see details she'd missed before. A thin scar that ran from his left eyebrow into his hairline. The cruel beauty of his mouth. The way his eyes seemed to look through her, cataloging everything, missing nothing. "What's your name?" he asked. Isla's mind raced. Should she lie? Give a false name? But he'd just said he hated liars, and something told her that lying to this man would be the last mistake she ever made. "Isla," she whispered. "Isla Brennan." He tilted his head slightly, considering her. "Isla, a lovely name. Irish?" She nodded mutely. "What were you doing here, Isla Brennan? This isn't the kind of neighborhood where young women take evening strolls." "I had a meeting," she managed, her voice shaking, "with a client. Downtown. I was taking a shortcut to the bus stop. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to." "You witnessed something you shouldn't have," he interrupted, his tone almost conversational. "That presents me with a problem." Tears spilled down Isla's cheeks, mixing with the rain. "I won't tell anyone, I swear. I'll forget I ever saw anything. Please, I just want to go home." Something flickered in those gray eyes. Not quite emotion. This man seemed incapable of something so human. But perhaps interest. "Marco," he said, not taking his eyes off Isla. "Take her to the car." "Boss?" Marco's grip on Isla tightened. "You want me to—" Did I stutter? The dark-haired man's voice dropped several degrees, and Isla felt Marco stiffen behind her. "Take her to the car. The town car, not the van. And for God's sake, be gentle. Can't you see she's terrified?" Isla's mind struggled to process what was happening. The car? Not the van. What did that mean? She'd expected a bullet, a shallow grave, her body never to be found. But he was telling his man to put her in a car? "Where are you taking me?" she asked, hating how her voice broke on the last word. The man stepped closer still, so close that she could see silver flecks in his gray eyes, could count the raindrops caught in his dark lashes. He reached out slowly, giving her time to flinch away, and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. His touch was surprisingly gentle, at odds with everything else about him. "Somewhere safe," he said quietly. "There are people who would kill you for what you've seen tonight, people who wouldn't hesitate, wouldn't show mercy." His thumb traced along her jawline, and Isla's breath caught. "I'm not going to let that happen." I don't understand, Isla whispered. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You don't need to understand. You only need to trust me. Trust you? The words came out sharper than she'd intended, fed by fear and desperation. You just killed someone. Yes, he agreed simply, without a hint of shame or regret. I did, and I'd do it again. That's the world I live in, Isla Brennan, a world you've now stumbled into. His hand moved to cup her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. But I protect what's mine, and as of this moment, you're under my protection. I'm not yours, Isla said, even as her body betrayed her with a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. That not-quite smile deepened. Aren't you? Before she could respond, he stepped back and nodded to Marco. Take her, and tell the others to clean up here. I want no trace left by morning. Marco began to pull Isla away from the shipping container, guiding her toward the mouth of the alley, where she could now see a sleek black car waiting, its engine purring softly. Isla looked back over her shoulder at the dark-haired man. He stood in the rain, hands in his pockets, watching her with those inscrutable gray eyes. Lightning flashed again, and for just a moment he looked like some ancient god of vengeance, beautiful and terrible and utterly inhuman. Wait, Isla called out, the word torn from her throat. What's your name? If you're going to kidnap me, at least tell me who you are. He was silent for a long moment, rain streaming down his face. Then, Dante Caruso. The name sent a chill down Isla's spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Even she, who paid little attention to the news, had heard whispers of that name. The Caruso family, one of the oldest, most powerful crime families in the city, untouchable, merciless. And she had just witnessed their heir commit murder. As Marco guided her into the back of the town car, Isla caught one last glimpse of Dante Caruso standing alone in the rain-soaked alley. His eyes never left her, and in their depths she saw something that terrified her more than the violence she'd witnessed. Possession. The car door closed with a soft, final click. Through the tinted window, Isla watched the warehouse district disappear into the rainy night. Beside her, Marco sat silent and impassive, his hand resting on something beneath his jacket. A gun, no doubt. Isla's hands trembled in her lap, as the full weight of what had just happened crashed over her. She had witnessed a murder. She had been caught. And now she was in the custody of Dante Caruso, a man whose name was synonymous with danger. Somewhere safe, he had said. But as the car wound through the dark streets toward an unknown destination, Isla couldn't shake the feeling that she had just traded one danger for another. Perhaps a more insidious one. The cage door had closed behind her, and Dante Caruso held the only key. Chapter 1. Captive. Isla woke to sunlight. Not the weak, gray light that usually filtered through the thin curtains of her studio apartment, but genuine golden sunlight that streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows and painted everything in warm honey tones. For a disoriented moment, she simply lay there, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling, high and coffered, with intricate molding that looked hand-carved. Then memory crashed over her like a wave, and she sat up so fast her head spun. The warehouse, the murder, Dante Caruso's cold gray eyes in the rain. The car ride that had lasted what felt like hours, winding through streets she didn't recognize, Marco's oppressive silence, and finally, arrival at a mansion that looked like something out of a Gothic novel, all stone and iron gates and manicured grounds that seemed to stretch forever. She'd been too terrified and exhausted to resist when a severe-looking woman in her 50s had appeared to guide her upstairs. The woman, she'd introduced herself curtly as Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, had shown Isla to this room and informed her that, "Mr. Caruso requests you get some rest. He'll speak with you in the morning." And then she'd been alone. Isla had tried the door, of course, locked from the outside. The windows, too, were sealed. Beautiful leaded glass that let in light but offered no escape. She'd pounded on the door, screamed until her voice went hoarse, but no one came. Eventually, exhaustion had won. She'd collapsed onto the massive four-poster bed, still in her damp clothes, and fallen into a fitful sleep haunted by gunshots and smoke-gray eyes. Now it was morning, and the nightmare was still real. Isla swung her legs over the side of the bed, her bare feet sinking into plush carpet. At some point during the night, someone had removed her sneakers. The thought of someone entering while she slept made her skin crawl. The room was beautiful, she had to admit, even in her terror. The bed was enormous, draped in silk the color of champagne. Antique furniture, a wardrobe, a vanity, a writing desk, lined the walls. Oil paintings in gilded frames depicted pastoral scenes that felt deeply at odds with her situation. Fresh flowers, roses, white and perfect, stood in a crystal vase on the nightstand, their scent filling the air. It was a cage, but as cages went, it was undeniably luxurious. Isla walked to the windows, pressing her palms against the cool glass. Outside, she could see the grounds of the estate, acres of manicured lawn, gardens laid out in geometric patterns, a fountain in the distance. High walls surrounded the entire property, and even from here, she could make out the shapes of men patrolling the perimeter. Guards. Of course there were guards. She was trying to gauge how far the drop would be from her window, not that it mattered with sealed glass, when she heard the lock click. Isla spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. The door opened, and Dante Caruso stepped inside. In the harsh light of day, he was no less imposing than he'd been in the rainy darkness. If anything, he was more so. The rain had given him a kind of ethereal quality, made him seem almost unreal. But here, now, in this sunlit room, there was no mistaking what he was. A predator in expensive clothing. He wore a charcoal suit today, perfectly tailored to his lean frame, with a black shirt beneath, and no tie. His dark hair was still damp from what she assumed was a recent shower, pushed back from his face to reveal those sharp, aristocratic features. The scar above his eyebrow was more prominent in daylight, a silvered line that should have detracted from his beauty but somehow only enhanced it. And his eyes. God, those eyes. They fixed on her with the same intense focus as the night before, as if she were the only thing in the world worth looking at. "Good morning, Isla." His voice was like smoke and expensive whiskey, smooth and dark. "I trust you slept well. You can't keep me here." The words burst out before Isla could think better of them. "This is kidnapping, false imprisonment. People will look for me." Will they? Dante closed the door behind him with a soft click. He didn't lock it, she noticed. Didn't need to. They both knew she wouldn't get far. "Tell me, who will notice you're missing? Parents? Siblings?" Isla's throat tightened. "That's none of your business. I'm afraid everything about you is now my business." He crossed the room with the fluid grace of a cat, stopping a few feet away from her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and spiced that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "And to answer my own question, no, you have no family. Your parents died in a car accident when you were 19. You've been alone since then, working odd freelance jobs, living in a studio apartment in a neighborhood that's barely a step up from the slums." Cold dread washed over Isla. "How do you know that?" "I know everything about you." Dante reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out what looked like a thin folder. He opened it, scanning the contents with casual interest. Isla Brennan, age 26. Born in Dublin, immigrated to the States when you were 12. Graduated from community college with a degree in graphic design. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. You pay your bills on time, you have exactly 3 people you might call friends, and you haven't been in a relationship in over 2 years. He looked up from the folder, those gray eyes pinning her in place. "Am I missing anything?" Isla's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You have no right." "I have every right." His voice hardened, the velvet giving way to steel. "The moment you saw what you saw last night, you became part of my world. And in my world, Isla, information is power. The more I know about you, the better I can protect you." "Protect me?" Isla laughed, a sound edged with hysteria. "You're holding me prisoner. I'm keeping you alive. Dante closed the folder and tucked it back into his jacket. "The man I killed last night, his name was Vincent Russo. He was one of my father's oldest associates. He was also selling information to our enemies, information that would have gotten good men killed." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I don't tolerate betrayal." "So you shot him," Isla said flatly. "So I shot him," Dante agreed without a hint of remorse. "And I'd do it again. That's the reality of my world. Betray the family, and you pay with your life." He took a step closer, and Isla instinctively backed up until the windows pressed against her spine. But here's the problem. Vincent had allies. Men who won't be happy about his death. Men who will ask questions about how I knew he was the traitor. And if they discover there was a witness. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Isla's imagination filled in the blanks with horrifying clarity. "So you see," Dante continued, his voice softening slightly, "I'm not keeping you here as punishment. I'm keeping you here because the moment you step outside these walls, you're a target. And unlike Vincent, you haven't betrayed me. You're innocent. I don't kill innocents." "How noble of you," Isla said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Something flashed in Dante's eyes. Anger, maybe, or something darker. He moved with sudden speed, planting one hand on the window beside her head, caging her in. Isla gasped, shrinking back, but there was nowhere to go. "You think I'm a monster," Dante said quietly, his face inches from hers. "Maybe you're right. Maybe that's exactly what I am. But I'm a monster who's going to keep you alive, whether you like it or not." This close, Isla could see details she'd missed before. The way his pupils dilated slightly as he looked at her. The faint stubble along his jaw that gave him a rougher edge. The pulse beating steadily at his throat, visible above his shirt collar. He was so controlled, so utterly composed. But that pulse betrayed him. He was human, after all. "I want to go home," Isla whispered. Dante's expression softened fractionally. "I know, and I'm sorry, truly, but that's not possible. Not yet." "Then when?" "When it's safe." He reached up with his free hand, and Isla flinched. But he only tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers barely grazing her skin. The gesture was almost tender, which made it all the more unsettling. "When I've dealt with Vincent's allies, when I'm certain no one will come after you." "And how long will that take?" "As long as it takes." Dante pulled back, giving her space to breathe again. "In the meantime, you're welcome to move freely within the house and grounds. Mrs. Chen will provide you with anything you need. Clothes, books, whatever you want to make this more comfortable." "Comfortable?" Isla's voice rose. "You think any of this can be comfortable? I'm a prisoner." "You're a guest," Dante corrected, his tone brooking no argument. "An involuntary one, perhaps, but a guest nonetheless. And you'll be treated as such." He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "A word of advice, Isla. Don't try to escape. The perimeter is monitored 24/7, and my men have orders to stop anyone from leaving. I'd prefer they didn't have to use force, but they will if necessary." "This is insane," Isla said, her voice breaking. "You can't just keep me here indefinitely." Dante looked back at her, and for just a moment she saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret? Guilt? It was gone before she could name it. "Watch me," he said quietly. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft, final click. Isla stood frozen for a long moment, her heart pounding. Then her legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, her back against the window. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the trembling that had overtaken her entire body. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to normal people, to freelance designers who just wanted to pay rent and maybe save up enough for a better apartment someday. She wasn't supposed to be caught up in mob violence, held captive by a man with cold eyes and blood on his hands. But it was happening. And unless she could find a way out, this was her reality now. "Don't try to escape," Dante had said. "My men have orders to stop anyone from leaving." Isla looked around the luxurious room, her beautiful cage. Then her gaze fell on the window, on the grounds beyond, the walls, the guards. She'd never been good at following orders. The rest of the day passed in a surreal blur. Mrs. Chen appeared around noon with a tray of food, gourmet sandwiches, fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they'd come from an expensive bakery. Isla's stomach growled at the sight, reminding her she hadn't eaten since lunch the previous day, but pride made her want to refuse. Pride, however, didn't fill an empty stomach. She ate. Mrs. Chen also brought clothes, designer labels, all in Isla's size. When Isla asked how they'd managed that, the housekeeper simply said, "Mr. Caruso is very thorough," and left. Later, Isla explored the rest of the house. Dante hadn't been lying about freedom of movement. No one stopped her as she wandered through opulent rooms that looked like they belonged in a museum. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a music room with a grand piano that gleamed like black ice. Everything was beautiful. Everything was expensive. Everything felt utterly empty. She saw staff moving through the house, maids, a chef in the kitchen, men in suits who were clearly guards rather than domestic help. They all nodded politely when they saw her but didn't speak. It was as if she were a ghost haunting this gilded cage. As evening approached, Isla found herself in what appeared to be Dante's office. The door had been open, practically inviting her inside. Unlike the rest of the house with its old-world elegance, this room was modern, sleek lines, minimalist furniture, state-of-the-art technology. One wall was dominated by a massive window overlooking the grounds. Another held an array of monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. Isla was studying these when she heard a voice behind her. "Impressive, isn't it?" She spun to find Dante leaning against the doorframe, his jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. He'd been watching her, she realized. How long had he been standing there? "This is paranoia, not security," Isla said, gesturing to the monitors. Dante pushed off from the doorframe and entered the room. "In my line of work, paranoia keeps you alive." He moved to the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the darkening grounds. "My father taught me that. Trust no one, watch everyone, and always have an exit strategy." Sounds like a lonely way to live. It is. The admission came quietly, almost as if he hadn't meant to say it aloud. Then he shook his head, dispelling whatever moment of vulnerability he'd shown. "How was your first day of captivity?" "Captivity?" Isla raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was a guest." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Semantics. Did you have everything you needed?" "Besides my freedom? Sure. The food was great. The clothes fit perfectly. The room is lovely. It's almost enough to make me forget I'm being held against my will." Dante turned to face her fully, and in the low light of the office, his eyes looked almost black. "You're angry. Good. Anger will keep you sharp, keep you alert. Just don't let it make you stupid." "Like trying to escape, you mean?" "Like trying to escape," he agreed. "I meant what I said, Isla. My men will stop you. And while I've ordered them to be gentle, accidents can happen." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." He moved closer, and Isla fought the urge to back away. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "I don't want you hurt. That's the opposite of what I want." "Then let me go." "I can't." Something flickered across his face. Frustration, maybe, or regret. "Don't you understand? There are men who would torture you for information about me. Who would use you as leverage against me? Who would kill you just to send me a message?" His jaw clenched. "I won't allow that." "Why do you care?" The question burst out before Isla could stop it. "You don't know me. I'm no one to you." Dante was silent for a long moment, his gaze locked on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. "You're right. I don't know you. But I saw something in your eyes last night. Terror, yes, but also defiance, strength. You didn't beg for your life. You didn't offer me money or try to seduce me. You stood there in the rain, terrified but trying so hard not to show it, and I thought—" He stopped abruptly, as if catching himself revealing too much. "Thought what?" Isla pressed. Dante reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. His palm was warm against her skin, his thumb brushing along her cheekbone. The gesture should have terrified her. Instead, it sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a dangerous kind of electricity. "I thought," Dante said quietly, "that I wouldn't let anyone break that spirit, not the men who want you dead, not this situation, not even me." His thumb traced lower, skimming along her jaw. "You're stronger than you know, Isla Brennan." Isla's heart hammered against her ribs. She should pull away. Should slap his hand aside and put distance between them. This man was her captor, her jailer, no matter how expensive the cage or how kind his words. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. There was something mesmerizing about the way he looked at her, as if she were a puzzle he was determined to solve. As if she mattered. "This is Stockholm Syndrome," her rational mind screamed. "This is exactly how this starts." "I need to go," Isla whispered, finally breaking free of whatever spell he'd cast. She stepped back, putting the desk between them like a barrier. "I need to be alone." Dante let his hand fall. "Of course. I'll have dinner sent to your room. Tomorrow I have business to attend to, but Mrs. Chen will see to your needs." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Isla?" She looked up. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" A sad smile touched his lips. "For not screaming, for not throwing things at me, for giving me a chance to explain, even if you don't believe me." He paused. "Most people, when faced with what you've been through, would have fallen apart by now, but not you." "How do you know I'm not falling apart?" Isla asked quietly. Dante's eyes met hers across the darkening room. "Because you're still fighting, even if it's just with words right now. You haven't given up, and that—" He trailed off, something almost like admiration flickering in his gaze. "That's why I'll protect you, no matter what it costs." Before Isla could respond, he was gone. She stood alone in the office, her reflection staring back at her from the darkened window. Her hair was tangled, her eyes too wide, her cheeks flushed from Dante's touch. She looked like a stranger to herself. "What are you doing?" she asked her reflection silently. "You should hate him. Fear him. He's dangerous." But even as she thought it, she couldn't deny the truth. Part of her had felt safe when he touched her, protected, as if the whole world could come crashing down, and he would stand between her and the chaos. It was a dangerous thought, a seductive one. And that, Isla realized with a sinking feeling, was the real trap, not the locked doors or the guards or the high walls. The real trap was Dante Caruso himself. Chapter 2. The Rules. Isla woke to the sound of rain. For a disorienting moment, she was back in that alley, watching a man die, while thunder rolled overhead. But then she opened her eyes to the champagne-colored silk canopy above her bed and remembered. She was still in the cage, just a more comfortable one. 3 days. She'd been here 3 days. 3 days of wandering through empty rooms, eating meals she didn't want, wearing clothes that weren't hers. 3 days of polite nods from staff who wouldn't meet her eyes. 3 days of feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. 3 days of seeing Dante only in passing, a glimpse of him through a doorway, the sound of his voice from another room, the awareness of his presence even when she couldn't see him. He was giving her space, she realized, letting her adjust, or maybe he simply didn't care now that she was secured in his gilded prison. The thought shouldn't have stung, but it did. Isla threw back the covers with more force than necessary and stalked to the window. The rain streamed down the glass, turning the manicured grounds into an impressionist painting. Even the weather felt like a cage. She couldn't go outside without getting drenched, couldn't explore the grounds she'd been told she was free to roam. A soft knock interrupted her brooding. "Come in," Isla called, expecting Mrs. Chen with breakfast. But it was Dante who entered, carrying a tray himself. He wore casual clothes today, dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater that matched his eyes. His hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it. It made him look younger, more human, more dangerous, because humanity made him harder to hate. "Good morning," he said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "I thought we might have breakfast together, if you're amenable." Isla crossed her arms. "And if I'm not? Then I'll leave, and you can eat alone." Again, he pulled out a chair, the gesture somehow both casual and courtly. "But I was hoping we might talk. There are things we need to discuss." Curiosity warred with stubbornness. Curiosity won. Isla moved to the table and sat, careful to keep distance between them. The tray held an impressive spread: fresh pastries, fruit, coffee that smelled like heaven, and what looked like eggs Benedict. "You cooked this?" she asked, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. A hint of amusement touched his lips. "I'm a man of many talents. My mother insisted I learn to cook. She said a man who can't feed himself is helpless, and helpless men don't survive long in our world." "Your mother sounds wise." "She was." Past tense. Something flickered in Dante's eyes there and gone. "She died when I was 17. Isla knew she should feel nothing. This man was her captor after all. But the grief in those two words was so raw, so real, that sympathy stirred despite her best efforts to suppress it. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Dante poured coffee for both of them, the domestic gesture at odds with everything she knew about him. "So am I, every day." He took a sip, his gaze distant. "She would have liked you, I think. She always said the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. You've been through your own fire, haven't you, Isla? Losing your parents so young, making your own way. How very poetic. Did you have me investigated just to find common ground, or is that how you make all your prisoners feel special?" The words came out sharper than she'd intended, edged with 3 days of pent-up frustration and fear and confusion. Dante didn't flinch. "You're angry. You have every right to be." He set down his cup. "But like it or not, we're going to be spending time together. I'd prefer that time not be filled with constant hostility." "Then let me go." "I can't." His voice hardened. "We've been over this." "Have we?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you've given me pretty words, and expensive clothes, and gourmet food, but you haven't actually explained anything." Isla leaned forward, meeting his eyes. "You say I'm in danger. Fine. From who? For how long? What exactly is your plan here, Dante? Keep me locked up forever?" Dante was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. Then he stood and moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "The man I killed, Vincent Russo. He was part of a faction within my organization that's been questioning my father's leadership. My leadership by extension, since I'm his heir." His voice was controlled, matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather rather than murder and betrayal. "They think we've gone soft, that we're not ruthless enough anymore. They want to return to the old ways. More violence, less subtlety, expansion through force rather than strategy." He turned back to face her. Vincent was feeding information to the Volkov family. Russian mob, very traditional, very brutal. They've been trying to move into our territory for years. The intelligence Vincent provided would have given them locations, schedules, vulnerabilities. Good men would have died. Isla's coffee had gone cold in her hands. "So you killed him?" "So I killed him," Dante confirmed. "But Vincent wasn't working alone. There are others in my organization who share his views, who might see his death as a rallying point." "And the Volkovs?" His jaw tightened. "They'll be furious that their source has dried up. They'll be looking for answers." "And you think they'd come after me?" "I know they would." Dante moved back to the table, bracing his hands on the back of his chair. "If they discover there was a witness to Vincent's execution, they'll want to know what you saw, what you heard. They'll use any means necessary to extract that information. And when they're done..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Isla set down her cup carefully, afraid her trembling hands might drop it. "How long?" "Until I've neutralized the threat. Could be weeks, could be months." "Months?" The word came out as a strangled whisper. "You expect me to stay here for months?" I expect you to stay alive. Dante's voice softened. I know this isn't what you want. I know you feel trapped. But I need you to understand. This isn't about control. It's about survival. Yours. Isla stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. You keep saying that. It's about your survival. But maybe I'd rather take my chances out there than be locked in here, waiting for some invisible threat that might never come. It will come. The certainty in his voice was absolute. The only question is when. Then teach me, the words burst out before Isla fully realized she was saying them. If I'm in so much danger, teach me how to protect myself. Give me a gun. Teach me to shoot. Teach me self-defense. Something. Anything that doesn't involve me sitting in this room going slowly insane. Dante stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, to her utter shock, he laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine, and it transformed his face completely. For a moment, he didn't look like a mob boss or a killer. He looked like a man, attractive, vital, alive. What's so funny? Isla demanded. You. He shook his head, still smiling. 3 days ago, you'd never witnessed violence in your life. Now you're asking me to teach you to shoot. 3 days ago, I hadn't been kidnapped by the mob. Technically, you're a guest. Don't. Isla held up a hand. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this is anything other than what it is. You're holding me here against my will. That's kidnapping, no matter how nice the room is. The smile faded from Dante's face, replaced by something more complex. Respect, maybe? You're right. I apologize. No more pretense. He moved around the table, stopping just close enough that Isla had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. If I teach you to defend yourself, will you stop trying to escape? I haven't tried to escape. Yet. But I see the way you study the guards, rotation patterns. The way you test doors and windows when you think no one's watching. You're looking for an opening. His voice dropped lower. You won't find one, but I appreciate the strategic thinking. Isla's cheeks heated. She had been watching the guards, mentally mapping the estate, looking for weaknesses. The fact that he'd noticed was both embarrassing and oddly thrilling? No, not thrilling. That was the wrong word entirely. So? She pressed. Will you teach me? Dante considered her for a long moment. On one condition. You follow my rules while you're here, all of them. What rules? He held up one finger. 1. You don't leave the estate grounds without my express permission and escort, not even to the gardens after dark. Isla nodded slowly. A second finger joined the first. 2. You don't contact anyone from your old life. No phone calls, no emails, no social media. As far as the world is concerned, Isla Brennan has simply disappeared for a while. That one stung, but realistically, who would she contact? She had acquaintances, not friends. No family. No one who would truly miss her for more than a few days. 3. Dante continued. You tell me immediately if you see or hear anything suspicious, anyone who doesn't belong, any conversation that seems off. Trust your instincts. 4. His voice hardened. You don't go anywhere near my father's wing of the house. He's old-fashioned in his views. He wouldn't approve of your presence here, and I'd prefer to avoid that confrontation for as long as possible. Your father doesn't know I'm here? Isla asked, surprised. He knows I'm keeping a witness under protection. He doesn't need to know more than that. Something dark flickered across Dante's face. My father and I have different philosophies on how to handle complications. His way would be simpler but far less pleasant for you. A chill ran down Isla's spine. Meaning it's better if you stay out of his sight. Isla swallowed hard. Any other rules? Dante's expression softened slightly. The last one is more of a request than a rule. Talk to me. If you're angry, frightened, bored, frustrated, tell me. Don't suffer in silence. I can't help if I don't know what you need. I need my freedom. Besides that, despite everything, Isla felt a smile tugging at her lips. You're serious? You'll teach me self-defense? I'm always serious when it comes to keeping people alive, Dante extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Isla looked at his offered hand. Large, strong, with calluses that spoke of violence but a gentleness in how he held it out to her. This was a deal with the devil, she knew. Every rule he'd set would bind her more tightly to this place, to him. But what choice did she have? She could sit in this room going mad with boredom and fear, or she could take some control back, even if it was only the illusion of control. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and firm. Good, we start today. Again. Isla groaned but gamely got back to her feet. The gym in the estate's basement was state-of-the-art, all gleaming equipment and mirrored walls. It also had a padded training area where Dante had spent the last 2 hours teaching her basic self-defense moves. Or trying to. Isla had discovered that knowing how to do something in theory and actually doing it when facing 6 feet of solid muscle were very different things. I can't, she panted, wiping sweat from her forehead. You're too strong. This is pointless. It's not about strength, Dante said patiently. He'd removed his sweater an hour ago, working in just a fitted black t-shirt that left little to the imagination. Isla had been trying very hard not to notice the way his muscles moved under the fabric. It's about leverage and speed. Now, show me the move again. Someone grabs you from behind. What do? He moved behind her and wrapped his arms around her torso, pinning her arms to her sides. His chest pressed against her back, radiating heat. Isla's breath caught. From exertion, she told herself. Just exertion. I stomp on your instep, she managed. Good. And then? Drive my elbow back into your solar plexus. Show me. Isla went through the motion slowly, and Dante released her. Better. But you're telegraphing the elbow strike. Keep your movements compact, explosive. The point isn't to hurt me, though that would be a nice bonus. A hint of humor colored his voice. The point is to create an opening so you can run. And if I can't run? Dante's expression grew serious. Then you fight dirty. Eyes, throat, groin. Anything to disable your attacker. In a real fight, there are no rules, only survival. They ran through the sequence a dozen more times until Isla's muscles screamed in protest. Finally, Dante called a halt. Enough for today. You did well. Isla collapsed onto a nearby bench, her legs shaking. I feel like I've been hit by a truck. That's normal. Tomorrow will be worse. At her groan, Dante's lips twitched. But then it gets easier. Your body will adapt. He tossed her a towel and a bottle of water. Isla caught them gratefully, gulping down half the bottle in one go. When she looked up, she found Dante watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked. Nothing. It's just... He paused. You surprise me. Because I'm not very good at this? Because you keep trying even when it's hard, even when you fail. He sat down on the bench beside her, maintaining a careful distance. Most people give up the first time they get thrown to the mat. You've been thrown a dozen times, and you keep getting back up. Isla shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. What else am I going to do? Sit in my room feeling sorry for myself? Some would. Then some are idiots. She took another drink, then asked the question that had been nagging her all morning. Why are you doing this, really? It would be easier to keep me locked in that room, out of sight and out of mind. Dante was quiet for so long that Isla thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was low, almost reflective. When I was 8 years old, I watched my uncle die. We were at a restaurant, a family celebration of some kind. I don't remember what. Men came in with guns, started shooting. My father threw me under the table, covered my body with his. But my uncle, he was too slow, took 3 bullets to the chest right in front of me. Isla's breath caught. Dante. The point is, he continued, not looking at her, I learned that day that the world is dangerous, that violence can find you anywhere, anytime, that the only way to survive is to be prepared, to be stronger, to be the one in control. He finally turned to face her, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her heart skip. I don't want you to ever feel that helpless. Even if you never need these skills, you'll know you can defend yourself. That if the worst happens, you have a chance. Because you can't always be there to protect me, Isla said softly. Something flickered in his expression. Was it pain? Exactly. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the soft hum of the gym's ventilation system. Isla was acutely aware of Dante beside her, the heat radiating from his body, the faint scent of his sweat mixed with expensive cologne. It should have been off-putting. It wasn't. "Can I ask you something?" Isla said finally. "You can ask. I may not answer." "Fair enough." She took a breath. "That day, the day with your uncle, is that when you decided to be what you are now?" Dante's jaw tightened. "I didn't decide. I was born into this family, this life. There was never another option." "There's always an option." "Not for me." His voice hardened. "The moment I was born, my future was decided. Dante Caruso, heir to the family empire. Groomed from childhood to take over when my father steps down. I could no more walk away from this than I could stop breathing." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He stood abruptly, pacing away from her. "You think it's just about choice? About wanting a different life? The things I've done? The things I know? The enemies I've made? I can't just retire and open a bakery, Isla. This life owns me. It will until the day I die." The bitterness in his voice was palpable. Isla stood, moving closer to him. "And that's what you want? To be owned by it?" Dante laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What I want doesn't matter. It never has." He turned back to her, and the mask of control had slipped just enough for her to see the man beneath, tired, lonely, trapped in his own gilded cage. "All I can do is try to minimize the damage, try to make the family more legitimate, less brutal, try to protect the people who matter." "Like me?" "Like you." He reached out, his hand hovering near her face but not quite touching. "You're innocent in all this. That matters to me more than you know." Isla's heart hammered against her ribs. She should step back, should maintain distance, but she found herself leaning in instead, drawn by something she couldn't name. "Dante," she whispered. His hand finally made contact, cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and Isla's breath hitched. The air between them felt charged, electric, heavy with possibility and danger. "I should go," Dante said, but he didn't move. "You should," Isla agreed, but neither did she. They stood frozen like that, caught in a moment that could tip either direction. Then, from somewhere above them, a phone rang, sharp and jarring in the quiet. Dante stepped back as if burned. He pulled his phone from his pocket, glancing at the screen. Whatever he saw there made his expression harden. "I have to take this." His voice was once again controlled, professional. The glimpse of vulnerability was gone, locked away. "Mrs. Chen will escort you back to your room. Same time tomorrow for training." "Dante." But he was already walking away, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. The door closed behind him, and Isla was left alone in the gym, her heart still racing, her skin still tingling where he'd touched her. "What am I doing?" she thought desperately. "He's my captor. This is wrong." But even as she thought it, she couldn't deny the truth. She was starting to understand him, starting to see past the cold facade to the man beneath, a man who carried burdens she couldn't imagine, who lived in a world of violence, but tried to protect what innocence he could find. A man who was becoming dangerously important to her. And that, Isla realized with growing dread, was the most dangerous trap of all. That night, Isla couldn't sleep. She paced her room, replaying the day's events, the training session, Dante's confession about his uncle, the moment in the gym when he'd almost... What? Kissed her? And if he had, what would she have done? The question tormented her. Finally, unable to bear the confines of her room any longer, Isla slipped into the hallway. It was past midnight. Surely everyone would be asleep. She just needed to walk, to clear her head. The house was different at night. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Isla's bare feet made no sound on the plush carpets as she wandered, not really paying attention to where she was going. She found herself in front of a door she didn't recognize, one that stood slightly ajar. Light spilled out from the crack, and she could hear movement inside. Curious, Isla peered through the gap. It was Dante's bedroom. She recognized it from the masculine furnishings, the dark colors, the complete lack of personal touches, except for a single photograph on the nightstand. Dante himself stood by the window, his back to the door. He'd shed his shirt, revealing a tapestry of scars across his back and shoulders. Some looked old, faded to silver lines. Others were newer, still pink. Evidence of a violent life. As Isla watched, Dante poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. His movements were weary, as if he carried the weight of the world on those scarred shoulders. He downed the drink in one go, then braced his hands on the windowsill, his head bowed. He looked utterly alone. Isla's heart clenched. She should leave, give him privacy, but something made her push the door open wider. Dante? He spun, his hand instinctively going to the gun on his nightstand before he recognized her. Then he lowered his hand, his expression carefully neutral. Isla, what are you doing up? I couldn't sleep. She stepped into the room, acutely aware that she wore only a thin nightgown Mrs. Chen had provided. I didn't mean to intrude. I saw your light was on. Dante grabbed a shirt from the back of a chair, pulling it on but not bothering to button it. You shouldn't be here. I know, but she didn't leave. Instead, she moved closer, drawn by that same inexplicable magnetism she'd felt in the gym. Those scars. Occupational hazards. His voice was clipped, defensive. Does it ever stop? Isla asked quietly. The violence? The danger? No. Dante poured another drink, offering the glass to her. When she shook her head, he drank it himself. It never stops. That's the life I've chosen, the life that chose me. You don't have to be alone in it. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Dante's eyes met hers, and in them Isla saw a war being fought, desire against duty, want against wisdom. You don't know what you're saying, he said roughly. Don't I? Isla took another step closer. She was playing with fire, she knew that. But 3 days of isolation, of fear, of slowly seeing the man behind the monster, it had broken down her defenses. Or maybe it had built new ones, ones that let her see Dante as something other than just her captor. You've been protecting me, keeping me safe. Maybe I want to do the same for you, in my own way. Isla. Her name was a warning and a plea. Tell me to leave, she whispered. Tell me you don't want me here, and I'll go. Dante's hands clenched into fists at his sides. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, I can't. 2 words. That's all it took. Isla closed the remaining distance between them, and this time, when Dante reached for her, there was no hesitation. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. His eyes searched hers, giving her one last chance to change her mind, to run. She didn't. When his lips finally met hers, it was like lightning striking, electric, consuming, inevitable. Isla gasped against his mouth, and Dante took advantage, deepening the kiss until she could barely breathe, barely think. This was wrong. This was her captor, her jailer. This violated every rule of common sense and self-preservation. But as Dante's arms came around her, holding her as if she were something precious, Isla couldn't bring herself to care. For tonight, at least, they could both pretend they weren't alone. For tonight, the cage didn't feel quite so confining. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Cage. Isla woke to an empty bed. She lay still for a moment, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, not the champagne silk canopy of her assigned room, but a plain white expanse interrupted only by modern recessed lighting. Dante's room. Dante's bed. The sheets beside her were cold. He'd been gone for a while. Memory flooded back in a rush that made her cheeks burn. The kiss. his hands on her skin. The way he'd whispered her name like a prayer and a curse. They hadn't gone all the way. Dante had pulled back at the last moment, his breathing ragged, and said, "Not like this. Not when you might regret it in the morning." Then he'd simply held her, his arms a sanctuary against the world, until she'd fallen asleep, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Now, in the cold light of morning, Isla didn't know what she felt. Regret? Relief? Desire for more? All of the above? She sat up, pulling the sheet around herself, and noticed a note on the pillow beside her. Dante's handwriting was sharp and precise, like the man himself. "Had to leave early. Business. Mrs. Chen will bring you breakfast. We need to talk when I return. Nash D. We need to talk." 4 words that had never meant anything good in the history of human communication. Isla's stomach twisted. What had she done? She'd crossed a line last night, one that couldn't be uncrossed. She'd kissed her captor, slept in his bed, let herself feel safe in arms that belonged to a killer. Stockholm Syndrome, her rational mind whispered. This is textbook Stockholm Syndrome. But even as she thought it, she knew it wasn't quite that simple. Yes, she was dependent on Dante for her safety. Yes, he held all the power in this situation. But what she'd seen in his eyes last night hadn't been the cold calculation of a predator. It had been vulnerability, loneliness, a desperate need to connect with someone, anyone, who saw him as more than just the monster everyone expected him to be. She'd seen her own reflection in those gray eyes, and that was what terrified her most. A soft knock interrupted her spiral of thoughts. "Miss Brennan, may I come in?" Mrs. Chen's voice, polite but firm. Isla quickly gathered her nightgown from where Dante had carefully draped it over a chair. "Just a moment?" She pulled it on and tried to smooth her hopelessly tangled hair. When she opened the door, Mrs. Chen stood there with a breakfast tray, her expression carefully neutral. If the housekeeper was surprised or scandalized to find Isla in Dante's room, she gave no indication. She simply swept past and set the tray on a small table by the window. "Mr. Caruso asked me to ensure you ate something substantial this morning," Mrs. Chen said, her tone brooking no argument. "He also said to tell you that your training session has been moved to this evening at 6. He has matters to attend to today." Where did he go? The question slipped out before Isla could stop it. Mrs. Chen's lips thinned. "I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to say, miss. Mr. Caruso's business is his own." But something in her dark eyes softened slightly. "He did say he would return before dinner." "I see." Isla moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, leaving everything glistening and fresh. "Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something?" "You may ask. I may not answer." Isla almost smiled. Dante had said something similar. "How long have you worked for the Caruso family?" 23 years. I started as a housemaid when I was barely more than a girl. Mr. Caruso, Dante's father, took me in when I had nowhere else to go." Mrs. Chen's voice held a note of loyalty that bordered on reverence. "This family saved my life." "And Dante, what was he like before?" "Before he became what he is?" Mrs. Chen finished for her. She was quiet for a moment, seeming to weigh how much to reveal. "He was a good boy, serious, even as a child. Too serious. He always carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, always felt responsible for everyone around him." She paused. "His mother's death changed him, hardened him, but underneath, that boy is still there. He just doesn't let many people see it." Isla turned from the window. "Why are you telling me this?" Mrs. Chen met her gaze directly. "Because I've worked in this house for over 2 decades, and I've never seen Mr. Dante bring a woman to his private rooms. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Be careful, Miss Brennan, not because he might hurt you. I don't believe he would, but because you might hurt each other." With that cryptic warning, she left. Isla sank into the chair by the breakfast tray, her appetite gone despite the mouth-watering spread. Pastries, fresh fruit, perfectly poached eggs. All of it might as well have been cardboard. You might hurt each other. The words echoed in her mind. Because Mrs. Chen was right, wasn't she? This situation was impossible. Isla was a prisoner, no matter how gilded the cage. And Dante was her jailer, no matter how gentle his hands or how lonely his eyes. There was no future here. Only the present, stretched thin and precarious as a spider's web, ready to snap at the slightest pressure. Isla forced herself to eat something, then returned to her own room to shower and change. The clothes Dante had provided were all beautiful. Designer labels, perfect fits, expensive fabrics. Armor, she realized. A way to dress the part of willing guest, rather than captive. She chose a simple sweater and jeans, wanting comfort more than elegance. As she was pulling on her socks, her phone, the one Dante had allowed her to keep but which had no service, buzzed with a notification. A message from Dante. "Are you all right?" Isla stared at the screen. How did he? Of course. The phone probably had some kind of internal network, a way for him to contact her even though she couldn't contact the outside world. Another leash, another tether. She should ignore it. Should punish him for leaving without a word, for making her feel things she shouldn't feel. But her fingers moved of their own accord. "I'm fine. Where are you?" The response came immediately. "Handling the Vincent situation. His associates are asking questions. I need to provide satisfactory answers." A chill ran through Isla. Satisfactory answers? That probably meant more violence, more death. The reminder of who Dante really was, what he did, hit her like cold water. "When will you be back?" "Late afternoon. I'm sorry about this morning. About leaving. There are things we need to discuss." Isla's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could she say? That last night was a mistake? That it couldn't happen again? That despite everything, every logical argument against it, she wanted it to happen again? Finally, she typed, "I know. We'll talk when you get back. Thank you." And Isla, stay inside today, please. I have extra men on the perimeter, but I'd feel better if you stayed in the house. Why? What's wrong? Probably nothing. Just a feeling. Humor me. Isla wanted to argue, wanted to demand real answers, but something in his tone, even through text, made her hesitate. Dante's instincts had kept him alive in a world where one wrong move meant death. If he was worried, "All right, I'll stay inside." Good girl. The words sent an unexpected shiver through her. She shouldn't like that. The possessive approval, the implicit claim. But she did. God help her, she did. Isla set the phone aside and tried to focus on something, anything else. She spent the morning in the library, attempting to lose herself in books, but the words blurred on the page, her mind constantly wandering to Dante. Where was he? What was he doing? Was he safe? That last thought made her pause. When had she started worrying about his safety? He was a grown man, a dangerous one, perfectly capable of taking care of himself. And yet, around noon, Isla heard raised voices from somewhere in the house. Male voices, arguing in Italian. She crept to the library door, listening. "Foolish, keeping her here. Father is furious." "Father doesn't dictate how I handle my business." Dante's voice, cold and hard. He was back. "Your business? She's a witness, a liability. There are protocols for this, Dante. You know what needs to be done." "Don't." Dante's voice dropped to a deadly register. "Don't even suggest it, Marco." Marco, the man who'd grabbed Isla that night in the rain. His voice rose again, frustrated. "Then what? You keep her locked up forever? Make her your pet?" "The men are talking, Dante. They're saying you've gone soft, that you can't make the hard calls anymore." The sound of a fist hitting flesh, a grunt of pain. "Let them talk," Dante growled. "Anyone who has a problem with how I run things can take it up with me directly. As for the girl, she stays. Under my protection. End of discussion." "Boss, I didn't mean—" "Get out. And tell the others, anyone who touches her, Anyone who even looks at her wrong answers to me personally." "Understood." "Understood." Footsteps approached the library. Isla barely had time to retreat to a chair and grab a random book before the door opened. Dante stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, his shirt partially unbuttoned. There was a fresh bruise forming on his knuckles, and his hair was mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it. He looked exhausted and dangerous and utterly magnetic. "You heard that," he said, "not a question." "Some of it." Isla set down the book she'd been pretending to read. A dictionary, she realized with embarrassment. "Marco thinks you should kill me. Marco thinks a lot of things. Most of them are wrong." Dante crossed the room and sank into the chair opposite her with a weary sigh. "I'm sorry you had to hear that. Is it true? Are your men losing faith in you because of me?" "My men will follow me because I'm strong enough to make them follow. If they question that, I'll remind them why they shouldn't." His gray eyes met hers. "You're not going anywhere, Isla. Not until I know you're safe. I don't care what anyone thinks about that decision." "Even your father?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Especially my father." They sat in silence for a moment. Isla studied him, taking in the lines of tension around his eyes, the set of his shoulders. Whatever he dealt with today had cost him. "Did you find out anything," she asked quietly, "about Vincent's associates?" "Some. Enough to know my instincts were correct. You're in danger. The Volkovs know there was a witness. They don't know who yet, but they're looking." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've put out false information, sent them chasing ghosts. But it's only a matter of time before they piece things together." Fear prickled along Isla's spine. "How much time?" "I don't know. Weeks, maybe. A month if we're lucky." He reached out and took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. The gesture was becoming familiar, comforting. "I won't let them get to you. I swear it." "By keeping me locked up here forever?" "If that's what it takes." His voice was absolutely serious. Isla pulled her hand back. "Dante, that's not a life. That's just existing, surviving. Surviving is all that matters." "No," she stood, pacing to the window. "Surviving isn't enough. There has to be more than just staying alive. Otherwise, what's the point?" Dante was quiet for so long that Isla finally turned to look at him. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read, something between admiration and despair. "You really believe that," he said softly. "Even after everything you've seen, everything you know about my world, you still think life should be more than just survival. Don't you?" "I used to." He stood and came to stand beside her at the window. "When I was young, I had dreams. Stupid dreams for someone in my position. I wanted to study architecture, design buildings instead of criminal empires. I wanted to travel, see the world, maybe fall in love with someone who didn't know or care about the Caruso name." He laughed, but it was bitter. "My father beat those dreams out of me. Literally. Sometimes. He said they made me weak, made me vulnerable. He said the only thing that mattered was the family, the business, the legacy." Isla's heart ached for the boy he'd been, forced into a mold that didn't fit. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He was right, in a way. Those dreams would have gotten me killed. In my world, vulnerability is death. Caring about things outside the family is death. Wanting more than what you're given is death." He turned to face her fully. "But then you stumbled into my life, with your defiant eyes and your stubborn refusal to break, and suddenly—" "Suddenly what?" Isla whispered. "Suddenly I'm having those stupid dreams again." His hand came up to cup her face, and Isla leaned into the touch despite herself. "Dreams where I'm not what I am, where you're not what you are to me, where we have a chance at something normal, something real." "Dante." "I know." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "I know it's impossible. I know I'm being selfish, keeping you here. I know last night was a mistake, that I should have sent you back to your own room. But Isla," his voice roughened, For the first time in 15 years, I don't feel alone, and that's worth any price." Isla's breath caught. She should push him away, should remind herself, that this was wrong on every level. But the raw honesty in his eyes, the vulnerability he was showing her, made it impossible. "You're not alone," she heard herself say. "I'm here. You're my prisoner." "Maybe, but I'm also," she hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I'm also someone who sees you. Not the boss, not the killer, not the heir to some criminal empire. Just you." Dante's eyes darkened. "You shouldn't. You should run from me, not toward me." "Probably," Isla's lips quirked in a sad smile. "But we don't always do what we should, do we?" "No." His hands slid into her hair. "We don't." This time when he kissed her, it was different from the desperate passion of the night before. This was slower, deeper, filled with something that felt dangerously close to tenderness. Isla kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "This is madness," he murmured. "I know. We can't have a future, not a real one." "I know that too." "Then why?" "Because right now is all we have," Isla finished. "And I'd rather have this, whatever this is, than nothing at all." Dante pulled back to look at her, searching her face. "You mean that?" "I do." And she did, Isla realized with a jolt. Somewhere in the past 4 days, she'd stopped seeing Dante as just her captor. She saw the man beneath, complicated, damaged, trying desperately to balance duty and desire. She didn't approve of his world, his methods, his violence, but she understood him. And against all logic, all reason, she was starting to care. Maybe Mrs. Chen had been right. Maybe they would hurt each other. But some things were worth the risk. Dante's arms came around her, holding her close. "You're going to be the death of me, Isla Brennan." "Right back at you, Dante Caruso." They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, pretending for just a moment that the world outside didn't exist. That they were just a man and a woman who'd found something precious in each other. But eventually, reality intruded. Dante's phone buzzed, once, twice, 3 times. With a muttered curse, he pulled away and checked it. Whatever he saw made his expression harden. "What is it?" Isla asked. "My father. He wants to see me." Dante's jaw clenched. "He's heard about you. He wants answers." Fear spiked through Isla. "What are you going to tell him?" "As little as possible." Dante tucked his phone away. "Stay in your room tonight. Lock the door. Don't come out until I come get you, no matter what you hear." "Dante, you're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared." He cupped her face in both hands, his gaze intense. "My father is not like me. He's old guard. Brutal. Unforgiving. If he decides you're a liability, if he thinks I'm compromised because of you." He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. "What will you do?" "Whatever I have to." Dante leaned in and kissed her once more, hard and desperate. "Whatever I have to keep you safe. Even if it means what?" But Dante was already pulling away, already armoring himself with that cold, controlled mask he wore for the world. "Go to your room. Lock the door. I'll come for you when it's safe." "Dante, please, Isla, for once, just trust me and do as I say." The raw plea in his voice made her nod. "Okay, but promise me you'll be careful." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Always." He headed for the door, then paused. "And Isla? If something happens, if things go wrong, there's an emergency exit behind the bookshelf in my room. Far left corner. Push the 3rd shelf from the top and it'll open. It leads to a tunnel that comes out past the perimeter wall. Marco knows where. He'll help you even if what? Even if I'm not around to give the order." His eyes met hers one last time. "I've left money, documents, everything you'd need, just in case." Cold dread washed over Isla. "You're talking like you might not come back." "I will come back." But there was something in his voice. Doubt, maybe, or resignation. But I've learned to plan for the worst. It's kept me alive this long. Before Isla could respond, he was gone. She stood alone in the library, her heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. Dante's father wanted to see him, wanted answers about her, and Dante was afraid, not for himself, but for her. Stay in your room, lock the door. Isla wanted to argue, wanted to demand to be part of this confrontation. But she'd seen the fear in Dante's eyes, carefully hidden, but there nonetheless. Whatever was about to happen, he didn't want her anywhere near it. She made her way back to her assigned room, her mind racing, the emergency exit, the documents, the money. Dante had prepared an escape route for her, contingencies in case he... No, she wouldn't think about that. Dante was smart, strong, capable. He'd survived this long in a brutal world. He would survive this too. He had to. Isla locked her door as instructed and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. No messages, no updates, just silence. The minutes crawled by, then an hour. 2. From somewhere deep in the house, she heard voices rising in anger, shouting, the crash of something breaking. Isla's hands clenched in her lap. Stay here, Dante had said, no matter what you hear. But what if he needed help? What if something had gone wrong? More shouting, closer now. A door slamming. Then, worst of all, sudden, oppressive silence. Isla was halfway to the door before she forced herself to stop. Dante knew what he was doing. She had to trust him, had to believe he would come back to her. She retreated to the bed, pulling her knees up to her chest, and waited. And waited. And waited. It was past midnight when she finally heard the lock click. Isla's head jerked up from where she'd been dozing fitfully against the headboard. The door opened slowly, and Dante stepped inside. He looked like he'd been through hell. His shirt was torn, blood staining the white fabric. Not all of it his own, she suspected. There was a cut above his eye, already swelling. His knuckles were split and bleeding. But he was alive. He was here. Dante! Isla was off the bed and across the room before she could think. Her hands hovered over him, wanting to touch, to comfort, but afraid of hurting him. What happened? Are you? I'm fine. His voice was hoarse. My father and I had a disagreement. A disagreement? Isla gestured to his injuries. This is a disagreement? A grim smile touched Dante's lips. In my family, yes, but I'm still standing. That's what matters. He swayed slightly, and Isla quickly guided him to sit on the edge of her bed. Let me get the first aid kit. No time. We need to talk. Dante caught her hand, holding it tight. My father knows about you. Not your name, not the details, but he knows I'm keeping a witness here. He's given me an ultimatum. Isla's heart sank. What kind of ultimatum? I have 1 week to either eliminate the threat. He couldn't quite meet her eyes. Or he'll do it himself. He thinks I've lost perspective, that I'm compromised. He's not entirely wrong. 1 week, Isla repeated numbly. And then what? He kills me? He tries. Dante's hand tightened on hers, almost painfully. But I won't let that happen. I'll fight him if I have to. I'll fight the entire family if that's what it takes. You can't. Isla pulled her hand free, standing and pacing away. Dante, he's your father. This is your family, your legacy. You can't throw it all away for me. Can't I? He stood, moving toward her, despite the obvious pain it caused. You think I value that legacy more than I value you? More than I value the first real thing I've felt in years? Yes, the word burst out, edged with frustration and fear. Because that's who you are, Dante. Your family is everything to you. And I'm just some girl who stumbled into your world. We barely know each other. This thing between us, it's not real. It can't be real. It's just proximity and loneliness and... Don't. Dante's voice cut through her panic. Don't diminish what this is because you're afraid. I'm afraid too. Terrified, actually. Because you're right. I barely know you. But what I do know, what I feel when I'm with you." He stopped in front of her, cupping her face in his battered hands. "I'd burn my entire world down before I let anyone hurt you. If that makes me weak, if that makes me a fool, so be it." Tears burned in Isla's eyes. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. But I'll die protecting something worth protecting. That's more than most men in my position can say." Isla wanted to argue, wanted to make him see reason, but the determination in his eyes, the absolute certainty, there would be no talking him out of this. Dante had made his choice. Now she had to make hers. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we prepare. I have allies in the family, people loyal to me rather than my father. We'll fortify the house, increase security. And if it comes to it," his jaw tightened, "if it comes to it, we fight. A war. You're talking about starting a war with your own family. I'm talking about protecting what's mine." His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "You're mine now, Isla. Whether you want to be or not. And I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his words should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a shiver of something else entirely through her body, something warm and electric and dangerously addictive. "I'm not a possession," she managed. "No," Dante agreed softly. "You're so much more than that. But I don't have better words for what you are to me, what you've become." He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. "Tell me to let you go. Tell me you want the emergency exit, the money, the documents. Tell me to get you out of here before this all goes to hell, and I will. I swear I will, even if it kills me." It was the most unselfish thing he'd ever said to her. The ultimate proof that beneath the violence and the control and the possessiveness, there was a man capable of true sacrifice. And that's when Isla knew she was lost. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. Dante pulled back to look at her, searching her face. "Isla." "I'm not going anywhere," she repeated, stronger this time. "Not without you. We'll face this together, whatever comes. If you're willing to fight for me, then I'm willing to fight beside you." "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what that means." Isla silenced him with a kiss. This one was different from all the others. Not desperate or passionate or tender, but decisive. A choice made. A line crossed. When she pulled back, she saw her own determination reflected in Dante's eyes. "Then we fight," he said simply. "Together. Together." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was coming. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Isla didn't feel afraid. She'd found her cage. But she'd also found something else. Someone worth fighting for. Worth staying for. And maybe, just maybe, that made all the difference. Chapter 4. Possession. The next 3 days passed in a strange, heightened state of anticipation, like the held breath before a scream. Isla watched as Dante transformed the estate into a fortress. More guards appeared, stone-faced men who moved with military precision. Security cameras multiplied like eyes, watching every corner, every entrance. Deliveries were inspected with paranoid thoroughness. Even Mrs. Chen started carrying a small pistol in her apron pocket. The cage was tightening, but now Isla understood why. Dante barely slept. She knew because she'd taken to sleeping in his bed. Not out of passion, though there was plenty of that simmering beneath the surface, but out of a mutual, unspoken need not to be alone. She'd wake in the middle of the night to find his side of the bed empty, and she'd find him in his office, studying security feeds or speaking in low, urgent Italian on the phone. He was preparing for war with his own father. On the third evening, Isla found him in the gym, attacking a heavy bag with a viciousness that made her flinch. His knuckles were already bleeding, his shirt soaked with sweat, but he didn't stop. Each punch landed with a meaty thud that echoed through the cavernous space. "Dante." Her voice seemed too small in the vast room. He didn't hear her, or pretended not to. Another punch. Another. The bag swung wildly on its chain. Isla moved closer. "Dante, stop. You're hurting yourself." This time he heard. He caught the bag mid-swing, breathing hard, and turned to face her. Blood dripped from his knuckles onto the mat. His gray eyes were wild, barely controlled. "I should have killed him," Dante said, his voice raw, "when I had the chance. Years ago, I should have taken over the family by force instead of waiting for him to hand it over. Maybe then." "Don't." Isla closed the distance between them and grabbed his hands, examining the damage, split skin, bruised bones. "Don't talk like that." "Why not? It's the truth." He pulled away, pacing like a caged animal. "In my world, hesitation is weakness. Mercy is weakness. I've known that my entire life. But with him, with my father, I could never." He stopped, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "He's still my father, and that makes me weak." "It makes you human," Isla corrected. She moved to the first aid kit mounted on the wall and returned with antiseptic and bandages. "Sit." "Isla." "Sit." She used the same tone she'd heard him use on his men, absolute authority. To her surprise, it worked. Dante sank onto a nearby bench, and Isla knelt in front of him. As she cleaned his knuckles, he watched her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. "You should go," he said quietly. "While there's still time. Take the emergency exit. I've arranged transport, a new identity, money, everything you need to disappear, to be safe." Isla's hands stilled. "We've been over this." "I know, but I need to say it again. Need you to understand what's coming." His voice dropped lower. "My father won't stop. He's gathering his own forces, men loyal to the old ways, who see my attempts at legitimizing the business as betrayal. When he makes his move, it won't be subtle. People will die, Isla, maybe me, and if you're here..." "Then I'm here." She met his eyes. "I made my choice, Dante. Stop trying to give me an out." "I'm trying to give you a life," he said desperately. "A real one. Not this." He gestured around them. "Not hiding behind walls, waiting for violence to come knocking." "And what kind of life would it be, knowing I left you to face this alone?" Isla finished bandaging his hands and sat back on her heels. "You think I could just walk away, start over, pretend none of this happened, pretend you didn't happen?" Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear. "What are you saying?" Isla took a breath. This was it, the moment to either retreat to safety or jump off the cliff entirely. She chose the cliff. "I'm saying that somewhere in the past week, you stopped being my captor and became something else, someone else." She reached up and touched his face, feeling the stubble rough under her palm. "I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's real, or if it's just Stockholm Syndrome or some kind of shared trauma. But I know that when you're not in the room, I feel less safe. When you're hurt, I hurt. And the thought of you facing your father alone, of something happening to you..." Her voice cracked. "I can't do it, Dante. I can't leave." Dante's hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm more firmly against his cheek. "You're asking me to put you in danger, to let you stay in a war zone. Everything I've done has been to protect you, and now you're asking me to..." "I'm asking you to let me choose." Isla's other hand found his. "You've made your choice, to protect me, to fight for me. Now let me make mine. Let me stay. Let me fight beside you." For a long moment, Dante said nothing. Then he pulled her up onto the bench beside him and into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "You're going to be the death of me," he murmured into her hair. "Or you'll be the death of me." Isla pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Either way, we're in this together." Dante's hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up. "Together," he echoed. Then he kissed her, and this time there was no holding back, no hesitation. This was a claiming, pure and simple, his mouth on hers, his hands in her hair, his body pressing her back against the bench. Isla gasped against his lips, and Dante took advantage, deepening the kiss until she was dizzy with it. His hands moved to her waist, lifting her easily so she straddled his lap. Even through layers of clothing, she could feel the heat of him, the hardness of his body, the barely leashed desire in the way he touched her. Isla. Her name was a groan against her mouth. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be mine, completely, in every way. I'm already yours, Isla whispered, and realized it was true. Somewhere in this twisted situation, she'd given him pieces of herself she hadn't known she could give. I've been yours since you refused to let me go. That was all the permission Dante needed. Intimate scene, too explicit for full inclusion. Later, they lay tangled together on the gym mats, their breathing slowly returning to normal. Dante had grabbed his discarded shirt to cover them both, and now his fingers traced lazy patterns on Isla's bare shoulder. I've never... Dante started, then stopped. Never what? Isla prompted, turning to look at him. Never felt like this. Never wanted someone the way I want you. Not just physically, though God knows that's there too. But this need to keep you close, to know you're safe, to hear your voice, your laugh. He paused. It terrifies me. Isla's heart clenched. Because it makes you vulnerable. Because it gives me something to lose. His arm tightened around her. Before you, I had the family, the business, the legacy, but none of it really mattered. It was just what I did, what was expected. But you, he turned to face her fully. You matter, and that's dangerous. For both of us, Isla agreed softly. She traced the scar above his eyebrow. How did you get this? My father. Dante's voice was flat. I was 16. I questioned one of his decisions. Thought we should show mercy to a debtor who'd fallen on hard times. He said mercy was weakness, then proved it by using me as an example. His jaw tightened. He beat me in front of the entire family. Said if his own son showed weakness, he'd crush it out of him, and he did. Isla's throat burned with unshed tears. I'm so sorry. Don't be. It taught me a valuable lesson. Show emotion, show weakness, and it will be used against you. After that day, I never let anyone see what I was really thinking, really feeling. I became exactly what he wanted. Cold, controlled, ruthless. He met her eyes. Until you. What changed? Dante was quiet for a long moment. You were so afraid that night in the rain, but you didn't beg. Didn't try to bargain or seduce your way out. You just stood there, terrified, but defiant. And I thought, he shook his head, I thought, here's someone who hasn't been broken by this world yet, someone who still believes there's more to life than just survival. And I couldn't let that light go out. I couldn't let my world destroy you the way it destroyed me. You're not destroyed, Isla said fiercely. Damaged, maybe, scarred, but not destroyed. There's still good in you, Dante, I've seen it. Have you, or do you just want to believe there is? But his voice held a note of desperate hope. I've seen it, Isla insisted, in how you treat Mrs. Chen, in how you haven't given up on making the family business more legitimate, in how you refuse to kill me, even when it would have been the logical thing to do. She cupped his face in both hands. You're not your father, Dante. You're better than him. I want to believe that. His eyes searched hers. When I'm with you, I almost do. Then believe it. Isla leaned in and kissed him softly. Because I do. They lay there in comfortable silence for a while, the violence of earlier replaced by something gentler. But reality couldn't be held at bay forever. We should go back upstairs, Dante said eventually, regret coloring his voice. Marco will be reporting in soon with the evening security status. Isla nodded, though she made no move to get up. Dante, what happens if your father wins? If his forces are stronger? They won't be. But there was doubt beneath the certainty. But if they are? Dante pulled her closer. Then I make sure you get out. That's non-negotiable, Isla. Whatever happens to me, you survive. No, Isla pushed herself up to look at him directly. No sacrificial martyr bullshit. We both survive, or neither of us does. Isla. I mean it. Her voice was steel. You don't get to decide my fate for me anymore. We're in this together, remember? That means we both fight, and we both live. Those are the only acceptable outcomes." A slow smile spread across Dante's face, the first genuine one she'd seen in days. "You know, for someone who was terrified of me a week ago, you've gotten very comfortable giving me orders." "Someone has to. You're clearly terrible at self-preservation." But Isla smiled back, feeling some of the tension ease. They dressed slowly, reluctant to return to the reality waiting upstairs. But as they climbed the stairs from the gym, Dante's phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read. "Fuck. What is it?" "My father. He's moved up his timeline." Dante's hand found hers, gripping tight. "He's coming tomorrow." The house exploded into controlled chaos. Men moved through the halls with weapons no longer bothering to conceal. Windows were reinforced. Doors were barricaded. The estate transformed from a home into a compound in a matter of hours. Dante was everywhere at once, directing his men, checking perimeters, reviewing security feeds. Isla watched from his office as he became the leader his position demanded. Decisive, commanding, absolutely in control. This was the man who'd earned his place at the head of a criminal empire. This was the Dante Caruso the world feared. And Isla realized with a jolt that she found it attractive. Not the violence that still made her stomach turn, but the confidence, the competence, the way he took charge and made others believe they could win an unwinnable fight. Around midnight, Marco appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we're as ready as we're going to be. The men are in position. If they come at dawn like we expect, they won't wait for dawn." Dante didn't look up from the security feeds. "My father is many things, but predictable isn't one of them. Double the watch. I want eyes on every approach." "Already done." Marco hesitated. "Boss, about the girl." "Her name is Isla," Dante said quietly, dangerously. "Use it." Marco's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Isla, should we move her to the safe room?" "No." Dante finally looked up. "She stays with me. If they breach the house, I want her where I can protect her." "That's not protocol." "Fuck protocol." Dante stood, his full height and presence making Marco take an instinctive step back. "She stays with me. End of discussion." Marco raised his hands in surrender. "Understood. But boss, you're making this personal. That makes you vulnerable." "I know." Dante's eyes cut to where Isla sat, curled in the window seat. "Believe me, I know." After Marco left, Isla moved to stand beside Dante at the desk. On the screen, she could see guards patrolling, guns visible, faces grim. "It's really happening," she said quietly. "Your father is really going to attack his own son." "Yes." Dante's arm came around her waist, pulling her close. "But he won't win. I've been preparing for this moment my entire life, even if I didn't know it." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I have something he doesn't." Dante turned her to face him. "Something worth fighting for, beyond power, beyond legacy. I have you." Isla wanted to tell him that was madness, that one person shouldn't be enough to tip the scales in a war like this. But the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't about logic or tactics or force of numbers. This was about belief, about having a reason to fight beyond mere survival. "Promise me something," Isla said. "Anything. Don't die for me. Live for me instead." Dante's smile was sad. "I'll try, Mishka. God knows I'll try." The endearment, Russian, she thought, though she didn't know what it meant, sent warmth through her chest. She leaned into him, resting her head against his heartbeat. They stood like that for a long time, taking comfort in each other's presence, knowing that when dawn came, or possibly before, everything would change. "Tell me something," Isla said eventually. "Something real. Something I don't know about you." Dante was quiet for a moment. "I play piano. Not well, but it's the one thing I do that has nothing to do with the family business. My mother taught me before she died. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I go to the music room and play. Badly. but it makes me feel closer to her." Isla lifted her head to look at him. "Will you play for me, after all this is over?" "After all this is over," Dante agreed. "I'll play for you every night if you want." "I'd like that." "What about you?" Dante asked. "Tell me something real, something I don't know." Isla thought for a moment. "I'm terrified of thunderstorms. Have been since I was a child. My parents died in a car accident during a storm, hydroplaning on a wet road. Now, every time I hear thunder, I'm back in that hospital waiting room, waiting for news that never came." She took a shaky breath. "The night I saw you kill Vincent, it was storming. I was already on edge before everything else happened." Dante's arms tightened around her. "And yet you stood there, defiant, even terrified, even facing your fear you didn't break." "I wanted to." Isla's voice was small. "I wanted to run, to hide, to pretend it never happened. But something in me refused to give in, refused to let fear win." "That's what I saw in you," Dante murmured. "That strength, that refusal to break, it's what made me want to protect you, what made me—" He stopped. "Made you what?" "Made me fall for you," he finished quietly. "Impossible as it is, insane as it is, I'm falling for you, Isla Brennan." Isla's heart stuttered. She'd known, on some level, that their connection went deeper than just circumstance or Stockholm Syndrome. But hearing him say it, hearing the vulnerability in his voice, "I'm falling for you too," she whispered, "even though I shouldn't, even though this is crazy and dangerous and probably going to end badly." Dante silenced her with a kiss, deep and claiming and desperate. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "It doesn't have to end badly," he said fiercely. "We'll fight, we'll win, and then we'll figure out what comes next. Together." "Together," Isla echoed. A sharp knock on the door made them both jump. Marco again, his face grim. "Boss, they're here." Dante's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The tender man holding Isla disappeared, replaced by the cold, controlled leader. How many? 20, maybe 25, coming up the west approach, armed to the teeth. Marco's hand rested on his gun. "Your father is with them." Dante nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Positions. No one fires unless I give the order. This ends today, one way or another." Marco left to relay the orders. Dante turned back to Isla, his mask slipping just enough for her to see the fear beneath. "Stay here," he said. "Lock the door behind me. No matter what you hear, stay in this room until I come back for you." "No," Isla grabbed his arm. "I'm not hiding while you—" "Isla." Her name was a command and a plea. "I need to know you're safe. I need to know that if things go wrong, you have a chance. Please, do this for me." Isla wanted to argue, wanted to insist on standing beside him, but the desperation in his eyes broke her resolve. "Come back to me," she said instead. "Always." Dante kissed her once more, hard and fast. "I love you, Isla, in case I don't get another chance to say it. I love you." Before Isla could respond, he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Isla stood frozen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "I love you," he'd said it. He loved her. And she loved him too, she realized. Crazy, impossible, completely insane, but true nonetheless. Outside, she heard shouting, orders being called out, the sound of vehicles approaching. Isla moved to the window, her hands pressed against the bulletproof glass. Below, she could see Dante standing at the front entrance, flanked by his men. Facing him, across the circular drive, was a group of armed men. And at their head, a man who could only be Dante's father. Even from this distance, even through the window, Isla could see the resemblance. The same sharp features, the same commanding presence. But where Dante's eyes held warmth beneath the coldness, his father's held only ice. The two men faced each other across the drive, and even without hearing the words, Isla knew this was it. The moment everything changed. The moment Dante chose between his family legacy and the woman he loved. Isla's hands clenched into fists against the glass. Live, she thought, desperately. Please, Dante, live. Below, Dante's father raised his gun, and all hell broke loose. Chapter 5. The Truth. The first gunshot shattered the night. Isla flinched away from the window, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Below, chaos erupted, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like deadly fireflies, men shouting, the sharp crack of gunfire echoing off the mansion's stone walls. She couldn't see Dante anymore. The angle was wrong, or he'd moved, or... No, don't think that. He's fine. He has to be fine. Another volley of shots. The sound of breaking glass. Someone screaming, in pain or rage. Isla couldn't tell. Every instinct screamed at her to do something, anything. But Dante's words echoed in her mind. Stay here. Lock the door, no matter what you hear. Isla backed away from the window, wrapping her arms around herself. She felt useless, helpless, trapped. Just like that first night, except this time the man holding her captive was out there fighting for his life. For her, I love you, he'd said, in case I don't get another chance to say it. The words played on a loop in her head, threatening to break her composure entirely. She hadn't said it back. She'd frozen, stunned, and then he'd been gone before she could form the words. What if she never got the chance? More gunfire. Closer now. Inside the house. Isla's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her hands shook as she looked around the office, searching for anything that could be used as a weapon. Dante had guns in here somewhere. She'd seen him loading one just yesterday. But where? The desk. She rushed to it, pulling open drawers with trembling fingers. Files. Papers. A laptop. And there, bottom drawer on the right, a sleek black pistol. Isla had never held a gun before. The weight of it was shocking, heavier than she'd expected. Cold metal against her palm. Her finger found the trigger, and she immediately moved it away, terrified of accidentally firing. Safety, she thought frantically. Guns have safeties. She examined the weapon with shaking hands, finding a small switch that she hoped was the safety. Should she flip it, leave it on? She had no idea. Dante had promised to teach her to shoot, but there hadn't been time. There was never enough time. A burst of automatic gunfire made her jump, nearly dropping the gun. It was so close, just down the hall maybe. The office door shuddered as something heavy slammed against it from the other side. Isla raised the gun with both hands, trying to remember every action movie she'd ever seen. Point and shoot. How hard could it be? The door burst open. Isla's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't shoot! Marco stumbled into the room, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. It's me! Isla lowered the gun, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. What's happening? Where's Dante? Still fighting, Marco slammed the door shut and dragged a heavy chair in front of it. Your man is fucking insane. Begging your pardon, miss. He's down there taking on his father hand to hand while bullets are flying everywhere. Despite the situation, there was admiration in his voice. Is he hurt? Not yet, but it's not looking good. His father brought more men than we expected, and half of our guys are on his father's payroll. Marco's jaw tightened. Fucking traitors, after everything Dante's done for this family. An explosion rocked the house. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by the faint glow of emergency lighting in the hallway. They're breaching the south wing, Marco muttered. He pulled out his phone, the screen's glow harsh in the darkness. Boss wants you in the safe room, now. What about Dante? He'll meet us there. Come on. Marco grabbed Isla's arm, not roughly, but with urgency. We have to move. Isla let herself be pulled toward the door, then stopped. Wait, the emergency exit. Dante showed me, behind the bookshelf in his room. Marco shook his head. That exit's compromised. His father knew about it. Probably from the traitors. That's how they got inside so fast. The safe room is our only option now. They burst into the hallway, and Isla got her first real look at the carnage. Bodies, she couldn't tell whose, littered the floor. Blood spattered the walls. The acrid smell of gunpowder hung heavy in the air, mixing with something else. Smoke. Something was burning. "Keep your head down," Marco ordered, pulling her along the corridor. "And for God's sake, don't look too closely at—" A figure emerged from a side room, gun raised. Marco shoved Isla behind him and fired twice. The figure dropped. Isla's stomach heaved. She'd just watched someone die, watched Marco kill without hesitation. This was Dante's world, this violence, this casual death, and she'd chosen to stay in it. Together she'd promised, "We both survive, or neither of us does." She tightened her grip on the gun in her hand and followed Marco deeper into the house. They were halfway to the safe room when they ran into more of Dante's father's men, 3 of them, blocking the hallway, weapons raised. "Well, well," one said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "The boss said there was a girl. Didn't believe it. Dante Caruso with a weakness? But here you are." His eyes raked over Isla in a way that made her skin crawl. "Old man's gonna be pleased when we bring you in. Might even let us have some fun first." Marco's gun barked twice, and the man crumpled. But the other 2 were already firing. Marco grunted in pain and went down, clutching his side. Isla screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. Blood, so much blood, seeping through his fingers. "Run!" Marco gasped. "Safe room, code is 0817, Dante's birthday. Go!" "I'm not leaving you." "I'm already dead, you stupid girl." Marco's hand found hers, pressing something into her palm. A key card. "Give this to Dante. Tell him I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better." The 2 remaining men were advancing, reloading as they walked. No hurry. They had all the time in the world. Isla looked down at Marco, at the blood pooling around him, then at the gun still in her other hand. Every self-defense lesson Dante had taught her flashed through her mind. Every conversation about survival. In a real fight there are no rules, only survival. Isla raised the gun. The safety was still on. She flipped it with her thumb, praying she'd guessed right, and fired. The recoil nearly knocked her on her ass. The shot went wide, punching a hole in the wall beside the first man's head. But it was enough to make him dive for cover. Isla fired again, and again, not aiming, not thinking, just pulling the trigger until the slide locked back, empty. One of the men was down. The other. Arms grabbed her from behind. Isla struggled, kicking, biting, doing everything Dante had taught her. Her elbow connected with something soft, and her captor grunted in pain, but didn't let go. "Feisty little bitch," he growled in her ear. "The boss is gonna love breaking you." Isla's mind raced. She still had the empty gun. Could she use it as a club? What about the key card? Could she... A gunshot. So close Isla's ears rang. The arms around her went slack. She stumbled forward as her captor fell, a neat hole in his forehead. Isla spun around. Dante stood at the end of the hallway, gun still raised, his face a mask of cold fury. Blood streaked his face, his own or someone else's, she couldn't tell. His shirt was torn, revealing bruises and cuts. But he was alive. He was here. "Dante," Isla breathed. He crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms, one hand cradling the back of her head, while the other still held his gun ready. "You're okay," he said, more to himself than to her. "You're okay, thank God." "Marco," Isla tried to pull away, to go back to where Marco lay bleeding. But Dante held her tight. "He's gone, Isla. There's nothing we can do." Isla looked over Dante's shoulder and saw it was true. Marco's eyes stared sightlessly at the ceiling, his hand still outstretched toward where she'd been kneeling. He'd died protecting her. "I killed someone," Isla whispered, the reality of it hitting her. "I shot him, and he's dead." "I know. I saw." Dante pulled back just enough to look at her face. You did what you had to do. You survived. That's all that matters. Is it? Isla heard the hysteria creeping into her voice. People are dying, Dante. Your men. Marco. Because of me. Because you wouldn't. Because of my father's greed and my own stubbornness. Dante cupped her face in his hands. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Do you understand me? Isla wanted to argue, but the intensity in his eyes stopped her. Instead, she asked, Where is he, your father? Dante's expression hardened. Pinned down in the south wing. Most of his men are either dead or surrendered. It's over. He paused. Almost. What do you mean, almost? I mean, a cold voice said from behind them, that it's not over until I say it is. Dante pushed Isla behind him as he spun, raising his gun. But he froze, his body going rigid. At the end of the hallway stood Dante's father, flanked by 2 more men, and he had a gun pressed to the head of Mrs. Chen. The housekeeper's face was pale but composed, even with a gun to her temple. Her eyes met Isla's across the distance, and in them Isla saw apology. Put down the gun, boy, Dante's father said. His voice was like gravel, harsh and unforgiving. Or I paint these walls with her brains. Let her go. Dante's voice was deadly calm, but Isla could feel the tension radiating from his body. She has nothing to do with this. Everything has to do with this. The older Caruso's face twisted with rage. You've disgraced this family, made us weak. All for what? Some red-headed whore you couldn't kill? Isla flinched at the words, but Dante's stance didn't waver. Last chance, his father continued. Put down the gun, hand over the girl, and maybe I'll let you live. You can disappear, start over somewhere else, but the girl dies. That's non-negotiable. She's seen too much, knows too much. She's a liability this family can't afford. No. Dante's response was absolute. His father's eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said no. Dante lowered his gun slowly, but he didn't drop it. You want her, you'll have to go through me first, and we both know how that will end. With you dead and the family restored to its proper order? The old man's smile was cruel. I can live with that. Can you? Dante took a step forward. Isla tried to hold him back, but he gently pushed her hand away. Because I don't think you can. I'm your son. Your heir. Everything you've built, everything you've worked for, it all dies with me. Is your pride really worth that? My pride is all I have left, the old man's composure cracked. You've taken everything else. You've made deals with our enemies, legitimized the business, turned us into fucking businessmen instead of what we are, wolves. And for what? So you can play house with this girl? So I can build something better than what you left me. Dante's voice rose. So I can create a legacy that doesn't require constant violence, constant fear. So I can be something more than just a killer. You are a killer. His father's face was red, spittle flying. You can't change what you are, what this family is. We're predators, Dante. It's in our blood. And that girl... He jabbed the gun harder against Mrs. Chen's head, making her wince. She's prey. You keeping her alive doesn't make you noble. It makes you stupid. Then I'm stupid. Dante's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Because I'd rather die standing beside her than live one more day under your rule. The hallway fell silent. Even the distant sounds of fighting had ceased. It was just the 5 of them. Dante and Isla, his father and his men, and Mrs. Chen caught between. The old man's face cycled through several emotions: rage, disappointment, resignation. Finally, he lowered the gun slightly. You really mean that, he said, almost wonderingly. You'd throw away everything, the family, the business, your life, for her. Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. His father shook his head slowly. Then you're not my son. The boy I raised would have never been this weak. You're right, Dante agreed quietly. I'm not the boy you raised anymore. I'm better than him. And if that makes me weak in your eyes, I'll wear it as a badge of honor." Something shifted in his father's expression. The rage drained away, replaced by something that might have been sadness. So be it. He raised the gun again, but this time it wasn't pointed at Mrs. Chen. It was pointed at Dante. "No!" Isla lunged forward, putting herself between Dante and his father. Everything happened at once. Dante shoved her aside. His father's gun fired, and Dante went down, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming across his white shirt like a crimson flower. Isla screamed. Mrs. Chen took advantage of the distraction, slamming her elbow back into her captor's gut. The moment of chaos was all Dante needed. From the floor, bleeding, he raised his gun and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. All 3 men dropped. Clean headshots, perfectly placed even while wounded. The old man fell last, his eyes wide with shock, the gun falling from his nerveless fingers. The silence that followed was deafening. Isla dropped to her knees beside Dante, her hands frantically checking his wound. "No, no, no! Stay with me! Dante, stay with me!" "I'm okay," Dante managed, though his face was pale. "Shoulder wound. Hurts like hell, but I'm okay." "You're not okay. You're shot." Tears streamed down Isla's face as she pressed her hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Why did you do that? Why did you push me away?" "Because I love you, you stubborn woman." Dante's good hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. "Because I'd take 100 bullets before I let one touch you." "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," Isla sobbed. "You could have died. You almost died." "But I didn't." Dante pulled her down for a kiss, tasting of copper and gunpowder and relief. "We're alive. Both of us. That's all that matters." "Mr. Caruso needs medical attention," Mrs. Chen said, appearing beside them. She'd retrieved a first aid kit from somewhere and was already working to properly bandage the wound. "The bullet went through cleanly, but he's lost blood. We need to get him to the hospital." "No hospitals," Dante said firmly. "Too many questions. Call Dr. Volkov." "Dr. Volkov is on your father's payroll," Mrs. Chen interrupted. "Was, I should say. I saw him leave with the other traders." She finished the bandage and sat back. "You'll have to make do with me until we can find a doctor we trust." Dante started to argue, then seemed to think better of it. "Fine. But not here. The house isn't secure anymore." He struggled to sit up, wincing. "Isla, help me up." "You need to rest." "I need to get you somewhere safe." Dante let her help him to his feet, swaying slightly. "The fighting might be over. But there are still men in the house we can't trust. We need to leave. Now." Mrs. Chen nodded. "I'll get the car. The garage is clear. I checked." She hesitated, her normally stern expression softening. "I'm sorry, Mr. Caruso. About your father." Dante looked down at the body of the man who'd raised him, beaten him, shaped him into a weapon. His face was unreadable. "I'm not," he said finally. "He stopped being my father a long time ago." His arm tightened around Isla. "Come on, let's go home." "Home?" Isla asked. "I thought the house wasn't safe?" A ghost of a smile touched Dante's lips. "Not this house. I have another property. Somewhere no one knows about except me." He leaned on her heavily as they started down the hallway, stepping over bodies and debris. "Somewhere we can rest, heal, figure out what comes next." "What does come next?" Isla asked quietly. Dante was silent for a moment. "I don't know. The family will need a new leader. There will be questions about what happened here tonight. Enemies who will see this as an opportunity to strike." He paused, looking down at her. "It won't be easy. It won't be safe. But if you're still willing—" "I'm still willing," Isla interrupted. "I told you, we're in this together, all the way." "All the way," Dante echoed. Then, softer, "I love you, Isla Brennan." This time Isla didn't freeze. "I love you too, Dante Caruso. Even though you're an idiot who throws himself in front of bullets." "Only for you," Dante murmured. "Only ever for you." They emerged from the mansion into the pre-dawn darkness. Behind them, smoke rose from the south wing. The grounds were littered with the detritus of battle, shell casings, abandoned weapons, bodies that would need to be dealt with. But ahead, past the gates, past the walls, there was freedom. And for the first time since that rainy night in the warehouse district, Isla could see a future that didn't involve fear and hiding. It wouldn't be an easy future. There would be challenges. Dante's enemies, his responsibilities, the blood on both their hands that could never be washed away. But they would face it together. The cage door had opened, and they were walking out of it side by side. Chapter 6: Betrayal. The safe house was nothing like Dante's mansion. Tucked away in the mountains 2 hours outside the city, it was modest, almost rustic. A 2-story cabin with weathered wood siding and a wraparound porch, surrounded by dense forest. No guards, no security cameras, no staff. Just isolation. "It belonged to my mother," Dante explained, as Mrs. Chen helped him inside. His face was gray with pain and blood loss, but he'd refused to stop until they were safely away from the city. "She bought it with money she'd saved before marrying my father. Her escape plan, she called it, a place where she could go if things ever got too bad." "Did she ever use it?" Isla asked, helping to ease him onto a worn leather couch. "No," Dante's jaw tightened. "She died before she got the chance." Mrs. Chen disappeared into what Isla assumed was the kitchen, returning with medical supplies and a bottle of whiskey. "This is going to hurt," she warned, pouring alcohol over Dante's wound. Dante hissed through his teeth but didn't cry out. Isla held his good hand, marveling at his self-control even now. "The bullet went clean through," Mrs. Chen said, examining the wound with practiced efficiency. "You're lucky. No major arteries hit, no bone damage. But it needs proper stitches, antibiotics. I can manage the stitches, but the infection risk—" "We'll deal with it," Dante said firmly. "No hospitals. No doctors we don't trust, absolutely." His eyes met Isla's. "I can't risk someone reporting this. My father's death will raise enough questions as it is." Isla watched as Mrs. Chen threaded a needle, her stomach churning. "What will you tell people about what happened?" "The truth, mostly." Dante winced as the needle pierced his skin. "That my father staged a coup. That he brought armed men into the house, killed my soldiers, and tried to kill me. Self-defense. Clean and simple. Will they believe it? They'll believe what I tell them to believe." There was steel in Dante's voice despite his weakness. "I'm the head of the family now. What I say is law." Mrs. Chen finished the last stitch and bandaged the wound tightly. "There. You'll need to keep it clean. Change the dressing twice daily. No strenuous activity for at least 2 weeks. And if you develop a fever—" "I know the drill." Dante's eyes were already drifting closed, exhaustion and blood loss taking their toll. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. You should get some rest, too." The housekeeper nodded and left the room, her footsteps heavy on the wooden stairs. Isla perched on the edge of the couch, studying Dante's face. Even in sleep, he looked tense, as if waiting for the next attack. She reached out and smoothed the furrow between his brows. "You can rest now," she whispered. "You're safe." But even as she said it, she wondered if men like Dante ever truly felt safe. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Dante slept most of the first day, his body demanding rest it had been denied for too long. Isla stayed close, monitoring his breathing, checking for fever, changing his bandages when Mrs. Chen showed her how. It felt oddly domestic, this caretaking, this intimacy born of necessity rather than passion. She learned the rhythm of his breathing, the way his face relaxed in true sleep versus the tense half-consciousness of pain. She learned that he sometimes murmured in Italian when he dreamed, words she couldn't understand, but that sounded like pleas. By the second day, Dante was restless. The cabin felt too small for his energy, even wounded. He prowled from room to room, checking windows, examining sightlines, planning defenses for a property he'd said no one knew about. "You can't protect against everything," Isla said, watching him wince as he reached up to test the strength of a window lock. "I can try." Dante's phone, a burner he'd grabbed on the way out, buzzed for the 100th time that day. He glanced at it and swore softly in Italian. "What is it?" "The family." Dante sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "They're gathering for the funeral, my father's funeral. They expect me to be there." "Will you go?" "I have to. If I don't, they'll see it as weakness, disrespect. Some of them are already questioning my legitimacy, saying I staged a coup, murdered my own father in cold blood." His laugh was bitter. "They're not entirely wrong." Isla knelt in front of him, placing her hands on his knees. "You defended yourself. You defended me. That's not murder, isn't it?" Dante's gray eyes were haunted. "I knew it would come to this eventually. I've been preparing for it for years, gathering loyal men, building alliances, waiting for the right moment. When he came after you, it gave me the excuse I needed." He looked away. "Maybe I wanted him dead. Maybe I've wanted it since I was 16 years old, and he beat me bloody in front of the entire family." "That doesn't make you a bad person, Dante. It makes you human. Does it? Or does it make me exactly what he always said I was? A killer who can't be anything else?" Isla cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me. You are not your father. You are not defined by his violence or his expectations. You're the man who refused to kill me when it would have been easier, who risked everything to protect me, who's trying to build something better than what he left you." She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. "You're the man I love. And that man is good, even if he's had to do terrible things to survive." Dante's arms came around her, pulling her into his lap despite the protest from his injured shoulder. "What did I do to deserve you?" "Kidnapped me, mostly." But Isla smiled, taking the sting from the words. "Held me prisoner in a gilded cage. And yet you stayed." "And yet I stayed." Isla kissed him softly. "The cage doesn't feel like a cage anymore, not when I'm with you." They stayed like that for a long moment, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Then Dante's phone buzzed again, shattering the peace. He checked it and tensed. "I need to make a call, alone." Isla recognized the dismissal. She climbed off his lap, trying not to feel hurt. "Of course." But Dante caught her hand. "It's not. I'm not shutting you out. It's just family business. The kind that's safer if you don't know the details. Plausible deniability. In case someone asks if I'm involved in your criminal empire." "Something like that." Dante's smile was wry. "Go rest. You've barely slept since we got here." It was true. Isla had been running on adrenaline and fear, catching only brief naps in the chair beside Dante's bed. Now that he was recovering, that exhaustion was catching up with her. She headed upstairs to the small bedroom Mrs. Chen had prepared for her. The bed was old, but comfortable, covered in a quilt that smelled of cedar and lavender. Through the window, she could see nothing but trees, a green infinity that should have felt peaceful, but instead felt isolating. Isla lay down, intending to rest for just a few minutes, but the moment her head hit the pillow, sleep dragged her under like a riptide. She dreamed of gunfire and blood, of Dante falling, over and over, while she stood frozen, unable to help. Of his father's cold eyes finding her across the hallway, the gun rising. Isla woke with a gasp, her heart pounding. The room was dark. How long had she slept? She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. 11:47 p.m. She'd been asleep for almost 8 hours. And the cabin was too quiet. Isla slipped out of bed and padded to the door in bare feet. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by moonlight filtering through the windows. She could hear voices from downstairs, Dante's and someone else's, someone who wasn't Mrs. Chen. Every instinct screamed danger. Isla crept to the top of the stairs, staying in shadow. Below, in the living room, she could see Dante sitting in the same chair as before. And across from him, gun drawn and pointed directly at Dante's chest, sat a man Isla had never seen before. He was lean and dangerous-looking, with sharp Slavic features and ice-blue eyes. Everything about him radiated controlled violence. "I'll ask you one more time, Caruso," the man said, his English heavily accented. "Russian, where is the witness?" Dante's face was carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about, Alexei." "Don't insult my intelligence." The man, Alexei, stood, moving closer. The gun never wavered. "We know there was a witness to Vincent Russo's execution. We know you've been hiding her. And we know your father's death has left you vulnerable. Your organization is in chaos. Your men are questioning your leadership. This is the perfect time to eliminate loose ends." "There is no witness." Dante's voice was steady, but Isla could see the tension in his shoulders. "Vincent was killed for betraying the family. End of story." "Then you won't mind if I search the house?" Alexei's smile was predatory. "Just to be thorough." Isla's blood ran cold. She needed to move, to run, but her body had frozen in place. If she moved now, he'd hear her. If she stayed, he'd find her. Either way, she was caught. "You're not searching anything," Dante said quietly. "This is neutral ground, Alexei. You agreed to come alone, unarmed, to discuss terms. Yet here you are with a gun pointed at me." "I lied," Alexei shrugged. "Just like you're lying about the witness." "The Volkov family has very specific information about her. Red hair, amber eyes, mid-20s. One of my men saw her in your mansion the night of the attack. She killed him before he could report back, but he managed to send a photo first." He pulled out a phone with his free hand and tossed it to Dante. Isla couldn't see the screen from where she hid, but she saw Dante's face go white. It was a photo of her, from that night. Blood-spattered, terrified, holding the empty gun. "So I'll ask you again," Alexei continued. "Where is Isla Brennan?" The use of her name made Isla's breath catch. They knew everything. Dante's jaw tightened. "She's gone. I let her go after my father's death. She's probably halfway across the country by now." "Liar." Alexei cocked the gun. "Last chance, Caruso. Tell me where she is, or I put a bullet in your brain and tear this place apart until I find her myself." Dante's eyes cut toward the stairs. So briefly, Isla almost missed it. A warning, a plea. Run. But Isla's feet had finally unfrozen. And instead of running away, she found herself moving forward, down the stairs, into the light. "I'm right here," she said. Both men spun toward her. Dante's face cycled through horror, fury, and resignation in the space of a heartbeat. "Isla, no." Well. Alexei's gun shifted from Dante to Isla. "The mysterious witness. You're braver than I expected. Or stupider." "Neither." Isla's voice was surprisingly steady. She descended the last few stairs, putting herself between Alexei and Dante. "I'm just tired of watching the man I love take bullets meant for me." How touching. Alexei's smile didn't reach his eyes. "But ultimately pointless. You're both going to die tonight. The only question is whether it's quick or slow." "I don't think so." Isla raised her hand slowly. "Because if you kill us, you'll never find out what we know about your operation, about the weapons shipment coming in next week, about the FBI investigation that's been building a case against the Volkov family for the past 6 months." Alexei's finger tightened on the trigger. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Isla forced herself to meet his cold gaze. "Dante told me everything. Insurance, he called it. If anything happens to us, that information goes public. To the FBI. To your rivals. To everyone who'd love to see the Volkov empire crumble." It was a complete bluff. Dante had told her nothing of the sort, but Alexei didn't know that. The Russian studied her face, searching for deception. "Caruso, is this true?" Dante had gone very still. Yes. One word. But it was enough. He was playing along, following her lead. "Where is this information?" Alexei demanded. "Safe deposit box. Multiple locations. If we don't check in every 48 hours, the contents get delivered to pre-arranged recipients." Dante stood slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. "So you see, Alexei, killing us solves nothing. In fact, it guarantees your organization's destruction." The silence stretched out, taut as a wire. Isla could hear her own heartbeat, feel Dante's tension radiating beside her. Finally, Alexei lowered the gun. "You're a clever bastard, Caruso. I'll give you that." His eyes cut to Isla. "And you're either very brave or very stupid to bluff like that. I haven't decided which." "Does it matter?" Isla's voice didn't shake. "A minor miracle." "I suppose not." Alexei tucked the gun away. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 1 week to provide proof of this insurance policy. Show me that it exists. Show me that it's real, and we'll call it even. The Volkov family will consider the Vincent Russo matter closed." "And if we can't provide proof?" Dante asked. "Then I come back." Alexei's smile was cold. "And next time I won't come alone." He moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing, Caruso. Your father's death has created a power vacuum. There are others in your organization who think they should be in charge. Be careful. The knife in your back might come from your own family, not your enemies." With that, he was gone, disappearing into the night like smoke. The moment the door closed, Isla's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Dante hadn't caught her, pulling her against him despite the pain it must have caused his shoulder. "That was insane," he said, his voice rough with fear and awe. "Completely insane. You could have been killed." "So could you." Isla's hands fisted in his shirt. "I wasn't going to let him shoot you while I hid upstairs like a coward. You should have run. You should have used the emergency exit, gotten away. We both survive, or neither of us does, remember?" Isla pulled back to look at him. "I meant that, Dante. I'm not leaving you. Not for anything." Dante's gray eyes were bright with emotion. "You magnificent, terrifying woman, do you have any idea?" He stopped, his hand cupping her face. "We have a problem, a big one." "The insurance policy that doesn't exist?" "The insurance policy that doesn't exist," Dante confirmed grimly. "Alexei will expect proof in 1 week. When we can't provide it, then we make it." Isla's mind was already racing. "You must have information on the Volkov operation. Documents, recordings, something. We just need to make it look like it's been prepared as insurance all along." "And the safe deposit boxes? The dead man's switch?" "We set them up tomorrow. It'll take work, but it's not impossible." Isla was warming to the idea now. "We tell Alexei we'll give him limited access. Show him 1 box, 1 set of documents, enough to prove it's real without exposing everything. Then we negotiate terms." Dante stared at her. "You're serious? You're actually suggesting we blackmail the Russian mob?" "I'm suggesting we stay alive." Isla met his gaze steadily. "Unless you have a better idea." Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed, a real laugh, full of genuine mirth. "A week ago, you'd never witnessed violence. Now you're planning to extort one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the country. What have I done to you?" "Show me how to survive in your world." Isla's expression grew serious. "I'm not naive anymore, Dante. I know what you are, what you do. And I know that in this life, sometimes the only way to stay alive is to be more dangerous than your enemies. This life." Dante's thumb traced her lower lip. "Is that what you want, Isla? This life? Because once we do this, once we cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be part of my world completely. No more innocence. No more pretending you're just a victim of circumstance." Isla considered his words carefully. He was right. This was a choice, a deliberate step into darkness. If she did this, she couldn't claim ignorance anymore, couldn't pretend she was just a bystander in Dante's criminal empire. She thought about the girl she'd been 2 weeks ago, the freelance designer who worried about rent and deadlines and whether she'd ever find love. That girl seemed like a stranger now, naive and small and utterly unprepared for the real world. Then she thought about who she'd become, a woman who'd killed to survive, who'd stood between Dante and a gun without hesitation, who'd bluffed a Russian mobster and won. She wasn't that innocent girl anymore, and maybe that was okay. "I want you," Isla said simply. "Whatever that means, whatever it costs. I want you, and I want a future with you. If that future includes blackmailing the Russian mob, then so be it." Dante's kiss was fierce and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to hell for this," he murmured. "Probably," Isla smiled. "But at least we'll go together." The next morning, they got to work. Dante had contacts throughout the city, lawyers, bankers, people who owed him favors and wouldn't ask questions. By noon, they had 3 safe deposit boxes set up in different banks, each under a fake name with Isla listed as cosigner. The contents were a mixture of real intelligence on Volkov operations, information Dante had been gathering for years, and manufactured evidence designed to look like an elaborate insurance policy. Financial records, shipping manifests, photographs of Volkov soldiers meeting with corrupt officials, enough to cause serious damage if released, but not enough to bring down the entire organization. "We need leverage," Dante explained as they reviewed the documents, "but not so much leverage that killing us becomes worth the risk of exposure. It's a balance." "How did you learn all this?" Isla asked, watching him work. "The strategy, the manipulation, My father," Dante's expression darkened. "Say what you will about him, but he understood power. He taught me that information is more valuable than money, that fear is more effective than force, and that the appearance of strength is often more important than actual strength." He paused. "He also taught me that everyone has a price. Everyone can be bought or threatened or manipulated." He was wrong about that last part, though. Was he? "You can't be bought." Dante looked at her, something like wonder in his eyes. "I tried, at the beginning. Offered you money, clothes, safety, everything I thought you might want. But you couldn't be bought. You can't be threatened or manipulated either. You just stay. Because you choose to." Is that so surprising? "In my world, yes." Dante reached for her hand. "Most people stay with me out of fear, or greed, or obligation. You stay because you want to. That's—" He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. "That's everything." Isla squeezed his hand. "Where do we go from here? After we show Alexei the insurance policy, after we've secured a truce with the Volkovs, what then?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. I need to consolidate power in the family, root out the traitors, rebuild what my father destroyed. That will take months, maybe years." He met her eyes. "It won't be easy. There will be more danger, more violence. People will come after us, after you, to get to me. Is that really the life you want?" "I don't know," Isla admitted. "A month ago, I would have said no without hesitation. But now—" She gestured to the documents spread before them, evidence of the life they were building together. "Now I think maybe I want whatever life lets me be with you, even if it's not the life I imagined. You deserve better than this, better than me." "Maybe." Isla stood and moved around the table to sit in his lap, careful of his injured shoulder. "But I don't want better. I want you. Flawed, dangerous, complicated you. Because you're mine, Dante Caruso, just like I'm yours." "Mine," Dante echoed, his arms coming around her. "My captive, my love, my impossible girl who stood between me and a bullet because she was too stubborn to run." "Someone has to keep you alive," Isla teased. You're terrible at self-preservation. Only when it comes to you. Dante's hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. I'd take 1,000 bullets before I let one touch you. You know that, right? I know. That's why I have to be here. To stop you from doing something that noble and stupid. She kissed him softly. We protect each other now. That's how this works. Together. Together, Isla confirmed. They spent the rest of the day preparing for the meeting with Alexei, going over every detail, anticipating every question. By evening they were as ready as they'd ever be. That night, as they lay tangled together in Dante's bed, they'd given up the pretense of separate rooms. Isla found herself thinking about the future. Not the immediate future of mob politics and Russian threats, but the distant future. Years from now, when the dust had settled. Would they still be together? Would she still love this complicated, dangerous man who'd kidnapped her and somehow convinced her to stay? She thought she would. Against all logic, all common sense, she thought she would love Dante Caruso until the day she died. What are you thinking about? Dante murmured sleepily, his hand tracing lazy circles on her hip. The future, us, whether we have a chance at something normal. Normal? Dante's laugh was soft. Mishka, nothing about us is normal. We're a mob boss and his former captive, planning to blackmail the Russian Mafia. Normal left the building a long time ago. I know, but maybe, Isla turned to face him, maybe we could have moments of normal, quiet dinners, lazy Sundays, growing old together without someone trying to kill us every other week. That sounds nice. Dante's expression grew wistful. When this is all over, when I've secured my position and dealt with our enemies, maybe we could take a trip, somewhere far away where no one knows our names. Where we can just be Dante and Isla, not Caruso heir, and the woman he couldn't kill. I'd like that. Isla snuggled closer, her head resting on his uninjured shoulder. Where would we go? Italy, maybe. I have family there, distant cousins, old connections. We could rent a villa in Tuscany, drink wine, watch the sunset over the vineyards, be normal for a little while. That sounds perfect. Isla could almost see it. A different life, a simpler one, but she knew it was a dream. Men like Dante didn't get to retire to Tuscan villas. They died young or ended up in prison. Unless they were very, very lucky. And very, very smart. We should sleep, Dante said, though he made no move to let her go. Big day tomorrow. Showing Alexei our fake insurance policy, convincing him not to kill us. You know, the usual. Isla laughed despite the gravity of the situation. The usual, right. She pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. I love you, Dante, even though you're completely insane and you've dragged me into your insane world. I love you too, Isla, even though you're stubborn and reckless and refuse to run when any sane person would have left me weeks ago. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, pretending for a few hours that tomorrow wouldn't come with all its dangers and uncertainties. But tomorrow always came, and with it the consequences of their choices. Chapter 7. Freedom or Love. The meeting was set for noon at a neutral location, an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront that neither the Carusos nor the Volkovs controlled. Dante insisted on going alone, but Isla refused. If I'm not there, he won't believe the insurance policy is real, she argued that morning as they prepared. I'm the witness he's after. I need to be part of the negotiation. You need to be safe. Dante checked his gun for the third time, his movements sharp with tension. The shoulder wound had healed enough that he could move without wincing, but Isla knew it still pained him. Alexei isn't like my father. He's a professional, ruthless. He won't hesitate to kill you if he thinks it serves his purpose. Then we'll have to make sure he thinks keeping me alive serves his purpose better. Isla finished braiding her hair, pulling it back from her face. She'd chosen practical clothes today, jeans, boots, a black sweater that wouldn't show blood, just in case. The thought should have terrified her. A month ago it would have. Now it was just pragmatic. What had she become? Dante's hand on her shoulder pulled her from her thoughts. You don't have to do this. I can still go alone. Show him the documents, make the case. No. Isla turned to face him. We're in this together, remember? I remember. Dante's expression was torn between pride and fear. The thought of you in danger again, of something happening to you. Isla silenced him with a kiss. Nothing's going to happen. We have leverage. We have a plan, and we have each other, she pulled back, her hands framing his face. Trust me, Dante, the way I trusted you. His gray eyes searched hers. Finally, he nodded. Always. I trust you always. They arrived at the warehouse 15 minutes early. Dante's men, the ones he trusted absolutely, had already swept the building and set up a perimeter. Marco would have been proud. Isla thought with a pang. He'd given his life protecting her. She wouldn't let it be in vain. The warehouse was exactly what it appeared to be. Cavernous, empty, echoing. Metal beams crisscrossed overhead, and broken windows let in slants of watery sunlight. Their footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as they moved to the center of the space. Romantic spot, Isla murmured, trying to break the tension. Dante's lips twitched. I considered flowers and champagne, but this seemed more appropriate for threatening Russian mobsters. Good call. They waited in silence, hands clasped. Isla could feel the weight of the gun Dante had insisted she carry, tucked into the small of her back. She'd practiced loading it, aiming it, firing it at the safe house range. She still hated the damn thing, but she'd use it if she had to. She'd already killed once to survive. She could do it again. At exactly noon, the warehouse's far door opened. Alexei entered, flanked by 4 men, huge, stone-faced, heavily armed. The Russian moved with casual confidence, as if he owned the space, owned them. He probably thought he did. Caruso, Alexei stopped 10 feet away, and the elusive Miss Brennan, how domestic. His ice-blue eyes raked over Isla in a way that made her skin crawl. I expected you to hide her away. Using her as bait is bold. Stupid, but bold. She's not bait. Dante's voice was cold. She's my partner, and she's here because the insurance policy was her idea. She knows the details better than I do. A calculated lie. But Alexei didn't need to know that. The Russian's eyebrows rose. Interesting. The witness becomes the strategist. Tell me, Miss Brennan, do you enjoy playing with fire? I enjoy staying alive, Isla replied, keeping her voice steady. The insurance policy ensures both our survival and yours. It's mutually beneficial. Is it? Let's see this policy then. Prove to me it exists and isn't just an elaborate bluff. Dante pulled out a key and a slip of paper. This is the key to one of 3 safe deposit boxes. The address is written here. You'll find documents inside. Shipping manifests for your weapons operations. Photographs of your soldiers with FBI contacts. Financial records showing money laundering through a dozen shell corporations. Alexei took the key but didn't look at the paper. And the trigger? The dead man's switch you mentioned? If we don't check in every 48 hours with a specific code, the contents of all 3 boxes get delivered to pre-arranged recipients. The FBI. The DEA. Your rivals in the Bratva. Dante's expression was impassive. If you kill us, your entire operation collapses within a week. Clever. Alexei turned the key over in his hand. But how do I know this isn't just one box with limited information? How do I know you're not bluffing about the other 2? This was the critical moment, the point where their bluff could be called. Isla stepped forward. Because I have one of the other keys. She pulled it from her pocket. Identical to Dante's. Different bank. Different location. I check in separately from Dante. If something happens to him, I still have the leverage to destroy you. And if something happens to me, I burn your empire to the ground, Dante finished. We're insurance for each other. Kill one, the other ensures mutual destruction. Kill both, and the automatic triggers do the same. The only way you survive is if we all survive. Alexei studied them, his expression unreadable. Then, to Isla's shock, he smiled. A real smile, not the predatory one she'd seen before. "You know what I see when I look at you two?" he asked. "I see a man who's finally found something worth dying for, and a woman who's realized she's worth killing for. That's rare. In our world, that's almost unheard of." He pocketed the key. "I'll verify the contents of this box. If it's real, if the information is as damaging as you claim, then we have a deal. The Volkov family will consider the matter of Vincent Russo closed. You keep your information locked away, we keep your witness alive. Everyone wins." "And if the information isn't damaging enough?" Isla asked. Alexei's smile faded. "Then I kill you both and deal with the consequences. But I don't think it will come to that. Caruso is many things, but he's not stupid. He wouldn't stake both your lives on a weak bluff." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Your internal problems. The power struggle in your family. That's your business. But if it spills over into Volkov territory, if your weakness becomes our problem..." He let the threat hang. "It won't," Dante said firmly. "I'm handling it." "See that you do." Alexei's gaze cut to Isla one last time. "You've chosen an interesting life, Miss Brennan. I hope you survive it." Then he was gone, his men following like shadows. The warehouse fell silent except for the whisper of wind through broken windows. Isla realized she'd been holding her breath and released it in a shaky exhale. "That went better than expected," she managed. Dante pulled her into his arms, his body shaking slightly. "That was the most terrifying hour of my life. When he looked at you like that, when I thought he might just shoot you to prove a point." "But he didn't." Isla held him tight. "Because we were smart. Because we had leverage. Because we did this together." "Together?" Dante echoed. He pulled back to look at her face. "You were incredible. The way you stood there, the way you spoke to him without fear. Isla, do you have any idea how rare that is? Most men twice your size would have been cowering." "I was terrified," Isla admitted. "I just didn't let it show. You taught me that. You taught me how to survive in your world." Dante's expression grew troubled. "My world? Is that what you want? Because there's still time, Isla. Still time to walk away from this, from me. I can set you up somewhere safe, give you a new identity, enough money to start over." "Stop." Isla placed a finger on his lips. "I'm not leaving. How many times do I have to say it before you believe me?" "I believe you. I just..." Dante took her hand, pressing it to his chest so she could feel his heart racing. "I look at you, and I see everything good that's left in this world. Everything I don't deserve. And I'm terrified that staying with me will destroy that goodness. That I'll corrupt you until there's nothing left of the woman you were." Isla was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "Do you want to know the truth? I think that woman is already gone. She died in that alley the night I witnessed a murder. She died when I killed to survive. She died when I chose you over my freedom." "Isla, let me finish." She took a breath. "That woman is gone, but maybe that's okay. Maybe she was too naive, too trusting, too soft for this world. This new version of me, the one who can bluff Russian mobsters and load a gun without shaking, she's stronger, harder, maybe not as innocent, but more capable of surviving, of protecting the people she loves. Is that what you think I want? A harder version of you?" "No, but it's what I need to be, for you, for us." Isla met his eyes. "I'm not corrupted, Dante. I'm evolved. There's a difference." Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. "Evolved? God, I love you. You face down a Russian crime boss and come out philosophizing about evolution." He pulled her close again. "You're extraordinary. Completely, utterly extraordinary." "So are you," Isla murmured against his chest. "Now let's get out of here before someone decides to blow up this warehouse with us in it." Practical as always, but Dante didn't move immediately. "Isla, thank you." "For what?" "For choosing me, for staying, for being the kind of person who doesn't run when things get hard." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "For loving me when I don't deserve it." "You do deserve it," Isla said fiercely. "You deserve love and happiness and a life that's more than just survival. And I'm going to make sure you get it." "How? By threatening to destroy our enemies?" "If that's what it takes, yes." Isla pulled back to look at him. I told you, we protect each other now. You've spent your whole life protecting everyone else. Let me protect you for a change. Something shifted in Dante's expression, a wall coming down, a guard being lowered. Okay, he said softly. Okay. They left the warehouse hand in hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Isla felt something like hope. But hope was a fragile thing in Dante's world. They discovered that the moment they returned to the safe house. Mrs. Chen met them at the door, her usually composed face pale. Mr. Caruso, there's been a development. Dante's entire demeanor changed. What kind of development? Your cousin, Antonio. He's called a family meeting for tonight. He's challenging your right to lead. Mrs. Chen's hands twisted in her apron. He says you're compromised, that keeping the witness alive proves you're not fit to head the family. Dante's jaw clenched. Antonio, I should have known. He's been waiting for an opening like this. Who is he? Isla asked. My father's nephew, older than me by 10 years. He always thought he should have been the heir, that I was too young, too soft. My father kept him in check, but with him gone. Dante paced, his mind clearly racing. If Antonio challenges me formally, if he gets enough family support, I could lose everything. The position, the power, the ability to protect you. Then we'll stop him. How? The family follows strength. Antonio is strong, brutal, exactly what they expect in a leader. I've been trying to modernize, to legitimize. That looks like weakness to men like him. Dante stopped pacing, his expression bleak. And he's right about one thing. Keeping you alive is a weakness, a vulnerability he can exploit. Ice formed in Isla's stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying that to secure my position, to prove I'm strong enough to lead, I might have to. He couldn't finish the sentence, but Isla understood. He might have to let her go. Or worse. No, the word came out sharp, certain. No, Dante, we've come too far, survived too much. I'm not losing you now. You might not have a choice. Dante's voice was rough with pain. If I can't prove my strength, if Antonio wins the family's support, he'll kill us both. At least if I make the hard choice, you survive. I can set you up somewhere safe, give you the life you deserve. Without you, that's not a life, Dante. That's just existing. Isla grabbed his arms, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. We're not doing this. We're not sacrificing each other to appease your power-hungry cousin. We're going to that meeting, and we're going to show them that keeping me alive isn't weakness. It's the smartest strategic move you've ever made. How? Isla's mind raced. There had to be a way. Some angle they could use. Antonio thought Dante was weak for keeping her alive, that love was a liability. But what if they flipped that narrative? What if... The insurance policy, she said suddenly. The leverage over the Volkovs. That was my idea, right? My strategy? Yes, but... So tell them that. Tell them you've kept me alive because I'm an asset. A strategist. Someone who can think outside the box of traditional mob tactics. Isla was warming to the idea now. Antonio represents the old ways. Brutal, simple, no subtlety. You represent the new way. Strategic, calculated, using intelligence as a weapon. Keeping me alive proves you're smarter than your father, smarter than Antonio, smart enough to see value where they only see weakness. Dante stared at her. That's actually brilliant. If I can frame you as an advisor, a consultant rather than just the woman I can't kill, it changes the entire dynamic. Exactly. And if Antonio challenges that, he has to argue that intelligence is worthless. That brutality is all that matters. But we live in a different world now, one where information is power. The family needs to modernize to survive, and I represent that modernization. You'd be painting a target on your back, Dante warned. If you become valuable to the family's operations, my enemies will see you as even more of a threat. They'll come after you to weaken me. They're already coming after me. Isla's voice was steady. At least this way I'm not just a victim, I'm a player. That gives me power, influence, a reason for the family to keep me alive that has nothing to do with your feelings for me. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. "You understand what you're proposing? You'd be officially joining the family. Becoming part of the organization. There's no going back from that, Isla. No claiming innocence. You'd be complicit in everything we do." "I'm already complicit." Isla thought of the man she'd killed, the Russian mobster she'd threatened, the criminal enterprise she'd helped protect with her bluff. "I crossed that line weeks ago. I just didn't want to admit it." "Are you sure? Because once we do this, once you become part of the family officially—" "I'm sure," and she was. Terrifyingly sure. The girl who'd stumbled into that warehouse district a month ago would have been horrified. But that girl was gone, replaced by someone harder, smarter, more ruthless. Someone who'd learned to survive in Dante's world. "Let's go prove to your family that I'm worth keeping alive." The family meeting was held in the basement of a restaurant the Carusos owned, a dark, wood-paneled space that felt more like a tomb than a conference room. When Dante and Isla arrived, the room was already full of men. Older men, younger men, all of them watching with cold, calculating eyes as they entered. And at the head of the table sat Antonio. He was everything Dante wasn't. Broad where Dante was lean, loud where Dante was controlled, with a cruel twist to his mouth that spoke of easy violence. He looked like a man who'd never met a problem he couldn't solve with his fists. "Cousin," Antonio's voice boomed through the space, "so good of you to join us. And you brought your pet. How quaint." Isla felt every eye in the room turn to her. The weight of their judgment was palpable. Most of them looked at her with contempt, a weakness, a distraction. A few looked at her with something worse, hunger. She lifted her chin and met their stares without flinching. "Antonio," Dante's voice was ice, "you called this meeting. State your case." "My case?" Antonio laughed, and several of the men joined in. "My case is standing right next to you, cousin. You've lost your mind over a piece of ass. You've started a war with your own father, our Don, over her. You've made us weak." "Weak?" Dante's voice was soft, dangerous. "Tell me, cousin, how many of father's men sided with him in the attack? How many of your allies are still alive?" The laughter died. Antonio's face darkened. "I won because I was smarter," Dante continued, moving into the room. Isla stayed close to his side, refusing to be cowed. "I planned. I anticipated. I built loyalty through respect, not fear. That's not weakness. That's evolution." "Evolution?" Antonio spat the word. "You sound like a businessman, not a boss." This organization was built on blood and strength, not strategy meetings and PowerPoint presentations. And where did that get us? Dante stopped across the table from Antonio. Constant war with rivals. FBI investigations every few months. Loss of territory to organizations that are smarter, more organized. Father's way was dying, Antonio. I'm trying to build something that will last. By keeping a witness alive? By risking everything for a woman? Antonio's eyes cut to Isla. She's a liability. Everyone in this room knows it. The only reason she's still breathing is because you're too pussy-whipped to do what needs to be done. Several of the men nodded. Isla felt her heart sink. They agreed with Antonio. Dante was losing them. Time to change the narrative. I'm not a liability, Isla said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. I'm an asset. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Surprised, skeptical, hostile. You have no voice here, girl, Antonio sneered. This is family business. Then let me join the family. Isla held his gaze. Because I'm the reason Dante has leverage over the Volkov organization. I'm the one who created the insurance policy that's keeping us all safe from Russian retaliation. And I'm the one who just convinced Alexei Volkov that killing Dante would mean the destruction of his entire operation. She could feel Dante's surprise, but she pressed on. This was her moment, her chance to prove she was more than just the woman Dante couldn't kill. You want to know why Dante kept me alive? Isla looked around the room, meeting each man's eyes in turn. Because he recognized something you're all too blind to see. Information is more powerful than bullets. Strategy is more effective than brute force. And someone who can think like an outsider, someone who's not entrenched in the old ways, is exactly what this family needs to survive. Pretty words, Antonio said, but words don't stop bullets. Strength does. Ruthlessness does. Really? Isla pulled out her phone, the burner Dante had given her. Then explain why, with one phone call, I can release information that will bring federal investigators down on 3 of our rival organizations. Explain why Alexei Volkov, one of the most dangerous men in this city, agreed to a truce because of a strategy I devised. She set the phone on the table between them. I'm not asking you to like me. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to recognize that I'm valuable. That keeping me alive serves the family's interests better than killing me ever would. The room was completely silent now. Isla could see the wheels turning in the men's heads, weighing her words, calculating the value of what she offered. She has a point, someone said from the back. An older man, gray-haired and scarred. The Volkov truce alone is worth keeping her around. We've been bleeding men and money in that conflict for months. And if the FBI comes sniffing around, having leverage over our rivals could be useful, another man added. Force them to take the heat while we clean up our operations. Antonio's face was turning red. You're all fools. She's playing you. Using fancy words and threats to make you forget she's a witness to a family execution. She's a security risk. I'm a calculated risk, Isla corrected. And one that Dante has managed brilliantly. He turned a potential disaster into an advantage. That's not weakness. That's the mark of a leader who can think 3 steps ahead. She moved around the table toward Antonio, and Dante tensed beside her, ready to intervene. But Isla knew what she was doing. She stopped directly in front of the older man, close enough that he'd have to back down or escalate. You want to lead this family? She asked softly. Then prove you're smarter than Dante. Show us your strategy for dealing with the Volkovs, your plan for avoiding federal prosecution, your vision for building something that will last beyond the next street war. Antonio's hand twitched toward his gun. For a heartbeat, Isla thought she'd miscalculated, that he'd shoot her right there just to prove he could. But Dante was faster. He stepped between them, his own gun out, and pointed at Antonio's head. Touch her, and you're dead. Challenge me, and you're dead. Question my leadership again, and you're dead. His voice was absolutely cold. I am the head of this family, not because my father chose me, not because of blood, but because I'm strong enough, smart enough, and ruthless enough to hold this position. Anyone who doubts that is welcome to test me, right now. The silence stretched. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, Antonio lowered his hand. You've made your point, cousin, but his eyes promised this wasn't over. We'll see how long your new strategy keeps us safe. We'll see how long before your weakness gets us all killed. He stood and stalked toward the door. Several men followed him. Not many, but enough to be concerning. The others remained seated, their expressions neutral, waiting to see what would happen next. Dante holstered his gun. Anyone else? His gaze swept the room. Anyone else want to question my authority? Now's your chance. Silence. Good. Dante's hand found Isla's, squeezing gently. Then let's talk about the future. About how we're going to modernize this organization while maintaining our strength. About how we're going to survive and thrive in a world that's changing faster than most of you realize. He pulled out a chair for Isla. And yes, she's part of those discussions. Because like it or not, she's proved her value. She's proved she can think strategically, negotiate with our enemies, and make the hard choices when necessary. That makes her family. Isla sat, her heart pounding. She'd done it. She'd convinced them, or at least enough of them, that she was worth keeping alive. But as the meeting continued, as plans were made and territories discussed, Isla couldn't shake the memory of Antonio's eyes, the promise of violence there. She'd made an enemy tonight, a powerful one. And in Dante's world, enemies didn't forget. It was past midnight when they finally returned to the safe house. Isla was exhausted. physically, emotionally, mentally drained. But beneath the exhaustion was a strange sort of elation. She'd stood in a room full of killers and held her ground. She'd proved she wasn't just Dante's weakness. She was his strength. "You were incredible tonight," Dante said as they climbed the stairs to the bedroom. "The way you stood up to Antonio, the way you turned the entire narrative around. Isla, I've never seen anything like it. I learned from the best." Isla leaned against him, grateful for his solid warmth. "You taught me how to survive in your world. I just applied the lessons." "No, you did more than survive. You thrived. You took a situation designed to destroy you and turned it into an opportunity." Dante opened the bedroom door and pulled her inside. "You're not my captive anymore, Isla. You're not even just my partner. You're part of the family," Isla finished. The words felt heavy, significant. "I'm officially part of the Caruso crime family now. There's no going back from that." "No," Dante agreed quietly. "There isn't. Does that frighten you?" Isla thought about it. Really thought about it. A month ago, the idea would have been horrifying. Now? "No," she said, surprising herself with the truth of it. "It doesn't frighten me. Because I chose this. I chose you. And I chose this life. And I chose to become someone who can survive in your world. That makes all the difference." Dante's hands cupped her face, his gray eyes searching hers. "I love you, more than I've ever loved anything, more than the family, more than power, more than my own life. You know that, right?" "I know." Isla's hands covered his. "And I love you, which is why we're going to make this work. We're going to build something better than what your father left behind. We're going to prove that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest foundation there is." "You really believe that?" "I have to," Isla smiled, though it felt fragile. "Because if I don't, then what was all of this for? The fear, the violence, the choices we've made. It has to mean something. It has to be building towards something better." Dante kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Together," he whispered. "Together," Isla echoed. They made love that night with a new urgency, not the desperate passion of survival, but something deeper, a claiming, a promise, an acknowledgement of what they'd become to each other. Afterward, as Isla lay in Dante's arms listening to his breathing slow into sleep, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From terrified witness to willing participant, from captive to partner, from innocent to whatever she was now. She'd changed. There was no denying that. The question was whether she'd changed for better or worse. Isla looked at Dante's sleeping face, so much softer in sleep than in waking. She thought about the family meeting, about standing up to Antonio, about joining the organization officially. She'd crossed lines tonight, irrevocable ones. But as Dante's arm tightened around her even in sleep, as if he couldn't bear to let her go even unconscious, Isla realized something. She didn't regret it. Not one bit. The cage had opened. But she'd chosen to stay. And maybe that made all the difference. Chapter 8. The Choice. 3 months later, Isla stood at the window of Dante's office, their office now, watching the city sprawl out below. From this height, in this tower of glass and steel, the world looked clean, orderly. You couldn't see the blood in the streets, the deals made in shadows, the violence that oiled the wheels of commerce. You couldn't see the truth of what held it all together. But Isla knew. She'd learned. Behind her, she heard Dante's voice, speaking in rapid Italian on the phone. She'd been learning the language. Another adaptation. Another way she'd changed to fit into his world. She could follow most of the conversation now. Something about a shipment, a dispute over territory, a rival who needed to be handled. 3 months ago, that word would have made her flinch. Now she simply made a mental note to review the security protocols for their warehouse district operations. How casually she thought it now. Our operations. Our territory. Our family. The call ended, and Dante's arms came around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "You're thinking too hard again," he murmured. I can practically hear the wheels turning. Just considering our options for the Brooklyn expansion. Isla leaned back into his warmth. If we move on the Dimitri territory now, we risk overextending. But if we wait, the Italians might make a move first. Look at you. Dante's voice held equal parts pride and concern. 3 months ago, you didn't know the difference between a capo and a consigliere. Now you're strategizing territory disputes like you were born to it. I had a good teacher. Isla turned in his arms. Are you complaining? No, never. But something flickered in his eyes. Sometimes I wonder if I've corrupted you beyond redemption. If the woman I fell in love with is buried so deep under all this that I'll never find her again. Isla understood what he wasn't saying. In the 3 months since she'd officially joined the family, she'd changed. She attended meetings now, offered counsel, made decisions that affected people's lives, and sometimes ended them. She'd become exactly what she'd promised that night, an asset. A strategist, a key player in Dante's transformation of the Caruso empire. But the cost had been her innocence, her softness, the parts of herself that had made her different from everyone else in Dante's world. She's not buried, Isla said quietly. She's just evolved. Like I said before, the core is still the same. I still value life, still believe there has to be more than just survival. I just understand now that sometimes you have to make hard choices to protect what matters. And that doesn't bother you? The things we do? The people we hurt? Isla thought about it, really thought about it. Did it bother her? Yes. Especially at night, when sleep wouldn't come and she replayed decisions she'd made, actions she'd endorsed. The man they'd had killed for stealing from their operations. The family they'd driven into bankruptcy for refusing to pay protection. The countless small cruelties that kept their empire running. But then she thought about what would happen if they didn't make those choices. Weakness would invite attack. Mercy would be seen as vulnerability. In Dante's world, in their world now, strength was the only currency that mattered. It bothers me, she admitted, but not enough to walk away. Not enough to leave you, she cupped his face. Does that make me a bad person? If it does, then we're bad people together. Dante's smile was sad. Maybe that's the best we can hope for. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mrs. Chen entered, her expression carefully neutral. Mr. Caruso, your 3 o'clock is here, the meeting about the port operations. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. We'll be right there. Dante waited until she left before turning back to Isla. You don't have to come to this one. It's going to be ugly. Disputes over percentages, threats, probably some violence. You could... I'm coming. Isla straightened her shoulders. She wore a tailored suit now, armor of a different kind. We're partners, remember? In everything. In everything, Dante agreed, but the concern in his eyes didn't fade. The meeting was exactly as ugly as Dante had predicted. The port operations had always been contentious. Too much money flowing through, too many hands wanting a piece. Today's dispute was between 2 of their lieutenants, both claiming the other had shorted them on their cut. Isla sat beside Dante at the conference table, watching the 2 men argue. Francesco was older, traditional, the kind of man who thought women had no place in family business. He'd made his contempt for Isla's presence clear from the moment she'd joined. Carlo was younger, more progressive, one of Dante's staunchest supporters. And right now, they looked ready to kill each other. You're a lying piece of shit, Francesco snarled, lunging across the table. I counted every container myself. Then you counted wrong, old man. Carlo stood his ground. Or maybe you're skimming off the top and trying to blame me when the numbers don't add up. Dante's fist slammed on the table, silencing them both. Enough. We'll review the manifests, check the security footage, and determine exactly where the discrepancy is. Until then, both of you shut your mouths and act like professionals. Francesco's eyes cut to Isla. With all due respect, boss, maybe we should discuss this without civilian ears present. The dismissal was clear. Isla felt anger spike, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd learned that too. Never show emotion in front of men looking for weakness. Miss Brennan is my advisor, Dante said, his voice cold. She has full clearance for all family business. If you have a problem with that, Francesco, you're welcome to take it up with me, privately. The threat was unmistakable. Francesco's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Of course, boss. No disrespect intended. See that there isn't. Dante pulled up the digital manifests on the screen behind them. Now, let's go through this systematically. As the meeting wore on, Isla found herself studying the numbers, cross-referencing shipment dates with payment records. And there, a pattern emerged that neither Francesco nor Carlo had noticed. Wait, she said, interrupting Dante mid-sentence. Look at these dates. 3 shipments in 2 weeks, all from the same supplier. But the payment schedule doesn't match the delivery schedule. Dante leaned closer, his eyes scanning the data. You're right. Someone's been creative with the accounting. Not someone. Isla pulled up another screen, her fingers flying over the keyboard. 3 months of watching Dante work had taught her the systems, the patterns. It's a third party. Look. Small amounts siphoned from each shipment, routed through a shell account, then redistributed. Whoever's doing this is smart. They're keeping the amounts small enough that neither Francesco nor Carlo would notice individually, but together. Dante's expression darkened as he traced the flow of money. Together it adds up to almost 200,000 over 6 months. The room fell silent. This wasn't a dispute between lieutenants. This was theft, betrayal. Who has access to these accounts? Isla asked. Only a handful of people. Dante's voice was deadly quiet. Carlo, Francesco, my accountant and... He stopped, his face going pale. And who? Isla prompted. Antonio. The name fell like a stone. My cousin has access. He oversees all port operations, reviews all the books. Francesco and Carlo exchanged glances. Boss, Carlo said carefully, are you saying Antonio is stealing from the family? I'm saying we need to investigate further before we make accusations. But Dante's hand had clenched into a fist on the table. If Antonio is behind this, if he's been undermining us from within while pretending to accept my leadership. He didn't need to finish. They all knew what it meant. Antonio had never truly accepted Dante's position. This could be the proof they needed that he was still working against them. Or it could be a trap designed to turn Dante against his own family. I'll look into it, Isla said quietly. Quietly. No one needs to know we suspect anything until we have proof. Dante's eyes met hers. In them, she saw trust warring with fear. Trusting her to handle this meant putting her directly in Antonio's crosshairs. If Antonio discovered what she was investigating. It's too dangerous, Dante said. It's necessary, Isla stood. Francesco, Carlo, you're both cleared. This discrepancy has nothing to do with either of you. Go back to your operations and keep this conversation between us, understood? Both men nodded, though Francesco's expression was thoughtful as he left. He was reassessing her, Isla realized. Seeing her not as Dante's weakness, but as someone capable. Dangerous, even. Good. Once they were alone, Dante pulled Isla into his arms. You don't have to do this. I can assign someone else. No. If it's Antonio, if he's planning something, he's doing it because he sees me as your weakness. Let him keep thinking that. Let him underestimate me. Isla pulled back to meet his eyes. That's our advantage. Our advantage could get you killed. Then you'll have to make sure it doesn't. Isla smiled, though it felt fragile. We protect each other, remember? That's how this works. Dante's forehead rested against hers. I'm terrified of losing you. Then we'll have to make sure you don't. The investigation took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Isla poring over financial records, cross-referencing accounts, following digital breadcrumbs through a maze of shell corporations and offshore accounts. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal while gathering evidence against one of the most dangerous men in the organization. Mrs. Chen helped, surprisingly. The older woman had connections throughout the family. Years and places Isla couldn't reach. and she seemed to have taken a liking to Isla, or at least she respected what Isla had become. "You've changed," Mrs. Chen said one evening as they reviewed documents in the safe house. "When you first arrived, you were terrified, fragile. Now look at you, investigating financial crimes, planning strategy, holding your own in rooms full of killers." "Is that a compliment?" Isla asked. "It's an observation." Mrs. Chen's expression was unreadable. "Mr. Dante's mother would have liked you. She was soft too at first, but she learned to be hard when she needed to be, to protect what mattered." "And what happened to her?" "She forgot to protect herself." Mrs. Chen's voice was sad. "She was so focused on keeping Mr. Dante safe, on shielding him from his father's brutality, that she didn't see the danger to herself. When she finally tried to leave, tried to take Mr. Dante somewhere safe. She didn't finish, but Isla understood. Dante's father had killed her, or had her killed. Either way, she'd paid the ultimate price for trying to escape. "I won't make that mistake," Isla said quietly. "No." Mrs. Chen looked at her with something like approval. "I don't think you will. You're stronger than she was. Smarter. You understand this world in a way she never could." The words should have felt like a compliment. Instead, they felt like a eulogy for the person she used to be. By the end of the second week, Isla had proof. Antonio had been systematically stealing from family operations for over a year, building up a war chest. And he'd been using that money to buy loyalty, paying off lieutenants, securing alliances, preparing for the moment when he'd challenge Dante again. This time, he wouldn't fail. Isla presented the evidence to Dante in their office, late at night when the building was empty. She watched his face as he reviewed the documents, saw the pain and anger warring behind his eyes. "My own family," Dante said finally, his voice hollow. "My own blood. He's been planning this since your father died, maybe before." Isla moved to stand beside him. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Dante was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "What would you do if this was your decision to make?" Isla had been expecting the question. She'd been thinking about it for days, weighing options, considering consequences. "I'd eliminate the threat," she said quietly, "permanently." Dante's eyes met hers, searching. "You're talking about killing him, killing my cousin." "I'm talking about protecting our family, our organization, our future." Isla held his gaze. "Antonio won't stop. You know that. Give him mercy, and he'll use it as an opportunity to destroy everything we've built. He'll kill you, kill me, and take control of an empire. He'll run into the ground with his brutality and short-sighted thinking. And that justifies murder? In this world, yes." Isla's voice was steady. "I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it doesn't make us monsters. But it's the reality of the choice in front of us. Him or us. And I choose us." Dante stared at her for a long moment. "You've really changed," he said softly. "The woman I kidnapped 3 months ago would never have suggested executing my cousin. The woman you kidnapped 3 months ago was naive." Isla moved closer. "She thought the world was black and white, good and evil. She didn't understand that sometimes you have to become the monster to stop worse monsters from winning." "And you're okay with that? With what you've become?" Isla thought about the question, really thought about it. Was she okay with being the kind of person who could casually suggest killing someone? Who could investigate financial crimes and plan executions with the same detached professionalism? "No," she admitted, "but I'm okay with protecting you, with protecting what we're building. And if that means making hard choices, getting blood on my hands," she held up her hands, studying them, "then that's the price I pay. We both pay." Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I don't want this for you. Don't want you to carry this weight." "Too late. I already do." Isla pulled back to look at him. "The question is, do we carry it together? Or do you shut me out, try to protect me from the worst of it?" "We carry it together," Dante said after a long pause. "Always together." "Then make the call." Dante's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his phone. This was different from the other kills he'd ordered. This was family, his blood, and Isla had just advised him to destroy that bond. But he made the call. And 3 days later, Antonio Caruso was found dead in his car, 3 bullets in his chest, a professional hit, clean, untraceable. The family accepted Dante's grief as genuine and his explanation that Antonio had been working with the Russians as truth. The evidence Isla had compiled made it convincing. The empire consolidated under Dante's leadership, and Isla became known throughout the organization not as Dante's weakness, but as his most trusted advisor, the woman who'd helped eliminate the last threat to his power. The woman with blood on her hands. 6 months after Antonio's death, Dante proposed. Not with fanfare or public displays. Just the two of them, in the safe house in the mountains where they'd first found refuge, the place that had become their sanctuary when the city grew too heavy. "Marry me," he said simply, holding out a ring that caught the firelight, a band of platinum set with emeralds the exact color of her eyes. "Be my wife, my partner, my equal in everything." Isla looked at the ring, then at Dante. She thought about everything they'd been through, everything she'd become, the choices she'd made, the lines she'd crossed, the blood she'd helped spill. She thought about the cage he'd first put her in, gilded and beautiful and suffocating, and how that cage had evolved into something else. Not a prison, but a partnership. Not captivity, but choice. "Yes," she said. Dante slipped the ring on her finger, and they made love in front of the fire, slow and tender and full of promise. Afterward, they lay tangled together, watching the flames dance. "Do you ever regret it?" Dante asked quietly. "Everything you've given up, the life you could have had?" Isla thought about the girl she'd been, the freelance designer who worried about rent and deadlines. That girl had wanted safety, stability, maybe someday a normal relationship with someone safe and boring. That girl was dead, and Isla found she didn't mourn her. "No," she said honestly, "I don't regret choosing you, choosing this life. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, I've done things I never thought I'd do. But I'm also stronger than I ever was, more capable, more alive, in a strange way." "More corrupted," Dante said, and there was pain in his voice. "Maybe, but maybe corruption is just another word for survival in your world." Isla turned to face him. "I could have walked away. You gave me chances. But I stayed. I chose this. And that choice, that agency, makes all the difference." "Does it?" "Yes." Isla's voice was firm. "Because I'm not your captive anymore, Dante. I'm your partner, your equal. And every day I wake up and choose you, choose this life, all over again. That's not corruption. That's love." Dante's eyes searched hers. "And you're happy? Truly?" Was she happy? Isla examined the question from all angles. She lived in constant danger. She'd helped plan murders. She'd become complicit in crimes she once would have reported to the police. Her hands weren't clean, and they never would be again. But she was loved, fiercely, completely, without reservation. She was powerful in a way she'd never been before. She mattered, not just to Dante, but to an entire organization. Her strategies had saved lives, built alliances, created something stronger than what had existed before. And every night, she fell asleep in the arms of a man who would burn the world down to keep her safe. "Yes," Isla said, "I'm happy." In a complicated, messy, morally ambiguous way, but happy. Dante pulled her closer, his face buried in her hair. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," Isla smiled against his chest, "but you've got me anyway." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other in the firelight, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Pretending they were just two people in love, not a mob boss and his partner in crime. But eventually, reality intruded. It always did. Dante's phone buzzed. An emergency. A crisis that needed his attention. Their attention. Because that's what their life was now. An endless series of crises, threats, decisions that would affect hundreds of lives. "We should go," Dante said reluctantly. "I know." But Isla didn't move immediately. She savored these moments of peace, knowing how rare they were. "Dante?" Yes. When this is all over, when we've secured our position, dealt with all our enemies, built something lasting, will we ever be able to just be? To have a life that's more than just survival? Dante was quiet. I don't know. Men in my position rarely get happy endings. We burn bright and die young, or we survive long enough to become exactly what we fought against. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. But with you, maybe we have a chance at something different, something better. I'll hold you to that. Isla sat up, already mentally shifting gears from lover to strategist. What's the crisis? The Volkovs. Alexei wants a meeting, says he has information we need to hear. About? He wouldn't say over the phone, but he used the emergency code, the one that means it's life or death. Dante stood, already reaching for his clothes. We need to go. Now. Isla dressed quickly, her mind racing through possibilities. Alexei wouldn't use the emergency protocol unless it was serious, which meant someone was making a move, someone dangerous. As they drove back to the city, Isla watched the landscape blur past. The mountains giving way to suburbs, suburbs to city streets, until they were back in the heart of Dante's empire. The buildings rose around them like walls, beautiful and imprisoning. The cage, she thought. They'd opened the door and walked out, but the cage had followed them. Or maybe they'd carried it with them, building new bars out of choices and consequences and blood. What are you thinking? Dante asked, glancing over. That we can never really escape, can we? This life, this world, it follows us everywhere. No, we can't escape. Dante's hand found hers across the console. But maybe we don't need to. Maybe the key isn't escaping the cage. It's choosing who we share it with. Isla looked at their joined hands, his scarred and calloused from violence, hers softer but no longer innocent. Together, they'd built something. Something dark and dangerous and morally complex, but theirs. Together, she said softly. Together, Dante echoed, always. The city rose before them, glittering and deadly in the night. Somewhere in those streets, a new threat was forming. A new crisis waited, but they would face it the way they'd faced everything else. Together. Not as captor and captive, not as weakness and strength, but as partners, equals. Two people who'd found something precious in the darkness and refused to let it go. The cage door was open. It had always been open. But Isla had chosen to stay. Would choose it again and again, every day for the rest of her life. Because love wasn't about freedom or captivity, it was about choice. And she chose Dante. Chose this complicated, dangerous life. With eyes wide open and no regrets. The car pulled up to the meeting location. Another warehouse. Another confrontation. Another test of their strength and strategy. Dante squeezed her hand once before letting go. Ready? He asked. Isla checked the gun tucked into her jacket. Her gun now, not borrowed, not temporary. A tool of her trade. Of their trade. Ready? She confirmed. They stepped out of the car together, side by side, and walked into the darkness. Into their future. Whatever it might hold. Epilogue, home. 1 year later, the villa in Tuscany was everything Dante had promised. Rolling vineyards, stretched as far as the eye could see, golden in the late afternoon sun. The air smelled of wine and lavender and the Italian countryside, a world away from the city, from the violence, from the constant threat of death. Isla stood on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Behind her, she could hear Dante in the kitchen, singing badly in Italian as he prepared dinner. The sound made her smile. They'd earned this. 3 months away, from the empire, from the responsibilities and dangers. 3 months to just be Dante and Isla, not crime boss and strategist. Not partners in violence, but partners in life. Her hand drifted to her stomach, still flat, but not for long. The pregnancy test had confirmed it that morning. She was carrying Dante's child. Their child. A new life born from the ashes of everything they'd destroyed and rebuilt. She hadn't told him yet. Wanted to wait for the right moment. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Dante emerged from the kitchen, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He'd relaxed in their time here. No suits, no guns. Just simple clothes and bare feet, and that rare, genuine smile that made him look years younger. "Just thinking about the future." Isla accepted one of the glasses but didn't drink. "About everything we've built, everything we've survived." Dante set down his glass and pulled her into his arms. "Regrets?" "None. You?" "Only that I didn't find you sooner." He kissed her temple. "But we have time now. All the time in the world." Isla wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe they could stay here forever, wrapped in this peaceful bubble. But she knew better. In 3 months, they'd return to the city. Return to the empire that needed Dante's leadership. Return to the danger. But for now, they had this. "Dante," she said softly, "I have something to tell you." He pulled back to look at her face, concern flickering in his gray eyes. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Dante's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, hope, fear, joy. 12 emotions in the space of a heartbeat. We're. He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "We're going to have a baby." Isla's hand found his, guiding it to her stomach. "I found out this morning. I wanted to tell you somewhere peaceful, somewhere safe." Dante's hand trembled against her stomach. "A baby. Our baby." His eyes met hers, bright with unshed tears. "Isla, I don't know if I can do this. Be a father. Raise a child in our world." "Then we'll change our world." Isla's voice was firm. "We've already started. The business is more legitimate than it's been in decades. We have truces with most of our enemies. And in 6 months, when this baby comes, we'll have even more reason to build something better. Something lasting. And if we can't, if the violence follows us home, if our enemies come after our child to get to us, then we'll protect them the way we protect each other." Isla cupped his face. "We're going to be parents, Dante. Terrifying, wonderful, completely life-changing parents. And yes, it's scary. Yes, there are 1,000 ways it could go wrong. But we face those dangers together, as a family." Dante's forehead rested against hers, his hand splayed protectively across her stomach. "A family. I never let myself imagine." Well, start imagining. Because in 6 months, there's going to be a tiny person who needs us both. Who needs us to be strong and smart and brave enough to give them a better world than the one we inherited. "I love you," Dante whispered. "More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And this child, our child, I'll protect them with everything I am. I'll build them a world where they never have to make the choices we've made. We'll build it together." Isla smiled through her own tears. "Just like we do everything else." They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the sunset painting them in gold. 2 people who'd found love in the most unlikely of places. Who'd built a partnership from captivity, strength from vulnerability, hope from darkness. The cage that had brought them together was gone now. In its place was something better. A home, a family, a future they were building brick by brick, choice by choice. And as the sun set over the Tuscan hills, as Dante's hands cradled the life growing inside her, Isla knew with absolute certainty. She'd made the right choice. Every single time. The end